My name is Richard Furrow, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm Cloud Hired.
I'm Cloud Hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm Cloud Hired.
So I'm Cloud Hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am Cloud Hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glowcloud team.
Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs, and I'm here joined by Mark Milovanovic, and we're here today to answer any type of tech career questions you have. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect, or an enterprise architect, or an AI architect, or a security architect, or a network architect, or even an engineering career. And that's why we're here. I've been an architect now for well over 25 years. I've held every kind of a role from a technical solutions architect to a solutions architect to a network architect to an enterprise architect to a business architect, and architecture has been my life's work. I've also spent over 20 years now training people for great technology careers where they don't have to start at beginner levels and they take senior level roles as their first job. And I've got clients that I've worked with that now work at Apple and Amazon and Cisco and Google and IBM and Microsoft and Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Zscaler, Palo Alto Networks, Caliant, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Barclays Bank, and so many other prestigious firms. And I want you to have great success in your career. I come online for the following reason. There's two ways you can learn in life. You can make a whole bunch of mistakes, which cost you a lot of time, effort, and money, or you can ask people who've already been successful and avoid making the mistakes. For example, as my wife used to say, I don't need to jump off of a building to find out that it's going to hurt me and or kill me. I can just know because I've already seen the mistakes that others have made. And that's why we're here. Because between Mark and I, with our 35 plus years experience in these type roles, we can guide you. We know what it takes to be successful, and I want you to be successful. So we're here to take questions you have about your career so we can help guide you. So you can go to where you want as fast as possible and earn as much as you want as fast as possible and not go up and down and up and down and up and down and struggle. So we're here for that. But before Mark and I begin answering your questions, I'd like to tell you about some really great things that I'm excited about. I'm sad to admit it, but I'm going to be 51 tomorrow. So we're going to celebrate my birthday with 50% off of every single live training program we have. Our live cloud architect programs, our AI architect programs, our enterprise architect programs, our elite programs, and it's all going to be 50% off. You can find the link in the description. You can find it in the chat box, and it's because it's my birthday, and I celebrate my birthday by watching people getting hired or watching people build their careers or seeing the success of others. That's what I like to do. I also want to tell you about some free things we have for you. Tomorrow, we're going to have a How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And people will come from all around the world, and we'll go over the cloud architect role, which most people don't understand. They study for the wrong job. We'll go over what employers are looking for. We'll go over the skills that you need, which in most cases are very different than what most people actually have. And we'll do anything we can to get you to your goals. So it's completely free. I'm also going to tell you that there's a huge difference between what we do as cloud architects and what's taught in certifications. And I don't believe anybody should ever pay for certification training material. So along with our free certifications that we typically do. We've recently done a completely free AWS Advanced Networking course taught by a whole bunch of CCIEs and other network architects. You can find that in our YouTube channel, and it's free. We just finished our last free AWS training. And guess what? When I get back from my birthday vacation, early September, we're going to do a 2-week Azure Solutions Architect Expert Boot Camp. So come join us. It's completely free, and we love hosting you. So we'll go over a lot more than that. So it's all free. Mark, would you like to say anything before we begin?
Well, first of all, hello, everybody. It's always a pleasure to be able to join Mike here for a Q&A that we have. One thing that I did want to point out is what makes these sessions so wonderful is not just the ability to have somebody like Mike and myself here to be able to answer your questions, but what really makes us so special is for you to put in the work and actually ask the questions. We can only answer questions that are being asked. So take advantage of it. Don't be shy. Remember that we all at some point in time wanted to have some form of guidance just to get us over the hump sometimes. So we're very happy to be here. We'll welcome you to ask your questions, and be sure to mix it up. If it's going to be a technical question, ask your technical questions. If you're a little bit more on the fence in regards to what does it really take to move you from a engineering position into more of design and architect role, be sure to ask that. That is why we're here, and we're happy to answer these questions. It's our way of giving back to the community, and we hope you all enjoyed today's session.
So ask your questions. We can only help you if you do. And please don't be shy. You know, it was actually Steve Jobs that said most people should just ask for help. And if they would, they'd be amazed with the number of yeses they get and the things they do. So for me, I just like getting people. My dancing girl, thank you so much for the happy birthday. You know, that's one of the things I always wish I actually learned was dance. You know, when I was younger, there was a bunch of football players that were actually learning how to dance. They were learning ballet. And I always thought that was incredible. I was a martial artist, and a lot of martial artists also learn to dance. And I finally wanted to do that and injured my foot very badly. But my dancing girl, thank you so much. Welcome. And I'm thrilled to have you here today. So Tyrone in the back end, please go in and bring in the first question.
Our first question for today is going to be from Cloud Station. They're asking, hi, Mike, what can one do to stand out in the interview? And what does it mean to take control of the interview?
Okay, so that is 2 great questions. The first thing, Cloud Station, is how to take control of the interview. Many people, sadly, go to the interview and they have questions asked of them. And it's like at random. The questions are being asked at them, and if they have a good luck day, they happen to ask the questions they know. And if they have a bad luck day, they fail the interview. Well, here's the thing. The interview starts before you get there, and I'll give you some guidance and some tips. The first thing is that whatever is going to be on your resume is going to be what I'm going to ask you on. So what's on your resume should be things that you know. If Mark puts BGP on his resume, I'm going to ask him about the BGP decision algorithm. I'm going to ask him about BGP keep alives and what they do. I'm going to ask him about the BGP finite state machine. I'm going to ask him how to traffic engineer BGP and traffic engineer flow. I'm going to ask him a lot. I'm going to go down because that's what's on his resume. But guess what? If he doesn't know BGP, the interview is over. Because first, a resume is an advertisement that says, why should I interview you? And imagine you had an advertisement that said it was a Mercedes. And you showed up for the Mercedes and it was a beaten up Chevy. But it was Mercedes price. Would you buy it? Of course you wouldn't. Now, if it was a brand new Chevy and it was a truck and you love Chevys, you might. But if you're planning on getting a Mercedes and you see an old beaten up Chevy, you're not going to buy it. So the first thing is you have to highlight all the good stuff that you can do and all the things that they need. And that starts the direction. The next side of taking control of the direction is how you answer the questions. Can you lead that interviewer into something that you're actually good at? And a lot of that is a question of listening to the employer and the questions they ask and answering it in a manner. So if Mark asked me about how to code, I'm an architect. I don't know how to code. Architects don't code. We design solutions. We lead architecture teams. We respond to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. We give presentations. We manage a lot of stakeholders and all of this stuff. Okay. So if I'm in there and somebody asks me about how to code, I might say, you know, Mark, I've spent the last 25 years as an architect. I've designed, present, and sold billion-dollar-plus architectures. I've led some strategic architectures for the world's largest banks, and if I was able to name them, I would. I would talk about generating significant returns for my clients. This client, I was able to increase the revenue by X, Y, Z percent. This client, I was able to decrease their operating percent, and I'd give them what I was good at. And I'd say, you know, Mark, that's what's been my focus. But for some reason, if you were interested in me in coding, obviously I could learn to code like I could learn to do anything else. But if you want to check my strength, let's talk about network architectures, high availability cloud architectures, enterprise architectures. And that way, Mark knows to ask me about the stuff that I know about versus the stuff that I don't. Now, if I lie to Mark and try to make up coding, it's kind of like the James Bond movie where they had a trap door and they pushed the button and then you fell out of the room. It was an older James Bond movie, or it was an Austin Powers. I can't remember. But it was one of those kind of movies. And that's what happens when you lie on the interview. It is completely over. So taking control is knowing what you know, putting it down on your resume, and guiding the leader there. The other part of it is knowing what employers want. Now, CloudStation, I'm going to give you some very terrifying statistics. LinkedIn very recently surveyed people. And they actually surveyed American workers at various companies, and they found 54% of employees are doing the bare minimum not to get hired, and 17% of employees are intentionally trying to hurt their companies. Which means if a company got rid of 70% of their people, they'd be better off because they wouldn't have people working against them. And the reality is they could get rid of half of the people they have and not even notice the difference. So when you understand the struggles that the employer has, now you can start thinking about it their way. And, you know, to catch a thief, you have to think like a thief. So the hiring manager wants this, someone that can do this job, the one in front of them. So if I want an architect, I don't care if you're a software developer. I don't care if you're a DevOps engineer. I care if you're an architect. And that's really important. And when we talk about how to transition from one job to another job, you have to do that. So they want someone that has good architecture skills. Now, the next thing is employers want somebody they can trust. So if you're honest about what you know and you're honest about what you don't know, you're going to win. I mean, in the first interview I went on, I can tell you it was my first interview ever in tech. I was interviewed by a gentleman named Devendra in Piscataway, New Jersey. And he asked me a question about EIGRP, which is a routing protocol. And you know what I said to him? I said, Devendra, I'm sorry I've not had the opportunity to learn that technology yet, but I'm highly energetic, I'm highly enthusiastic, and I absolutely love networking and technology. I said, Devendra, if this was important to you, I'd stay up all night, read 1,000 pages a day until I was the best EIGRP person on your team. But if you want to know my competency, let's talk about BGP, OSPF, and IP multicast. As soon as I said that, he shook my hand and said, Michael, I'm going to hire you. He said, but I do have a problem. You applied to be a network engineer, and you're not a network engineer. You're a senior network engineer. So it's going to be a better role and a higher salary than the one you came for. Is that okay with you? And I was like, tickled pink, if you will. So there's that. So you can't lie on the interview because nobody asks you a question that they don't know the answer to. The next phase is what you need to communicate to stand out is not only can you do the job and you're trustworthy, employers want someone that's energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the job. Passionate about the job. And you have to want to do it because Mark did a CCIE. I did a CCIE. I know I read 75,000 pages. I know Mark's in that 50 to 75,000 pages of reading that he did too. If you hate it, you're not going to read 75,000 pages. You're just not. You'll get to page 129 and go, the heck with this, toss it aside and be done. So they want energy, enthusiasm, and passion. But I want you to think about it from the employer's perspective. If you needed work done at your house, would you hire the person that says, hold on, I got to take some selfies? Or take a nap? Or would you hire the person that says, I love improving houses? So there's there. And kind of keep that in the back of your mind. The next thing employers want are people that are emotionally intelligent. Emotionally intelligent people don't have bad outcomes and they raise the energy of everyone else, which improves your productivity. The next thing employers want are people that are willing to go above and beyond, meaning knowing that you'll be there when they need it. Like the best friend you have that's with you by your side when things fall apart. They're looking for that. And the last part really comes out of an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. No architecture ever is done by one person. In fact, if you ask me, if you ask David Lithicum, if you ask anybody else that's ever been a chief architect like any of us in our world, every architecture we do is a combination of 15 to 50 people. And it takes 6 to 12 months to gather all the information we need. So there's that. So you need to communicate that. When you answer questions on an interview and somebody asks you about BGP, don't tell them how to configure it. They don't care, especially an architect interview. You need to be able to explain what is BGP, and then be able to explain how does BGP work, things like the finite state machine, what it does. And then you need to be able to talk about why we use it. For example, the ability to control our traffic, the ability to connect to multiple internet service providers and load share across them, the ability to secure our routing by not sending past the things that we don't want other people to reach, that sort of thing. So what is the tech? How does the tech work, and why to do it? Because remember, in most tech jobs, they're never going to ask you to demonstrate something unless you're a software engineer. You're going to have to explain it. And people assess how well you can explain it. So it's about knowing it. And that's why people that do hands-on configuration-based training always fail the interview, because they know how to. And then we ask them how it works. And they go, huh? What do you mean? And I'll ask them a question, and they just fall apart. So it's all about having good, strong fundamentals. And fundamentals are not A+, Net+, Linux+. Fundamentals are the deep involved in how the technology works. How does object storage work? Where are the limitations in object storage work? How does object storage use its metadata? What does that metadata enable you to do, for example? That kind of thing. That's what we're talking about as an architecture. How does object storage fit into the puzzle? How do we use it with regards to a data lake? How do we use it for this? But it's all the what is it for, that kind of thing. So, Cloud Station, I hope that answers your question. If not, please ask more.
Yeah, Mike mentioned a plethora of gold nuggets for all of you to take away, and something very simple that you can apply to stand out. I can't emphasize how important it is to be confident during the interview, especially when it comes to answering things that you have written on your resume. That is of paramount, because the assumption is going to be made by the interviewer is that you understand how the particular skills that you have mentioned, including how you have demonstrated these skills, actually are going to apply to the job that you're applying to. So that's also one of the things that you have to keep in mind. So whatever you put down on the resume, be able to provide a reason for it and context for it. And that's going to be vastly different than what a lot of people do. Because a lot of people, they're very good at citing some type of fact or kind of changing around an answer that they learned just so that it sound competent on the interview. That's going to make you sound like a robot. It's not going to make you sound like a human being, right? There are speech patterns that we as human beings have that demonstrate if it's a rehearsed answer that we're giving, or if it is something that we are able to formulate on the fly to apply in the situation. Now, we're not saying at all that you shouldn't prepare for the interview. You should definitely prepare for the interview, especially when it comes to what we call your elevator statement, where you're giving a brief synopsis of who you are and what your career has done for you and others around you. All right. So this is not to list down all the certifications that you have 50,000 years of experience. None of that is relevant. It's more relevant about who you are as the person. Because many times what happens, especially if you're going into positions where you're going to be dealing with people a lot, we need to see that human side of you. Because in extension, you are going to be representative of the company. If we can't relate the human side of you with what you have accomplished, both in a technical sense and a non-technical sense, it makes it really difficult to visualize you on the team. And if I can visualize you on my team, guess what? I'm now expending energy. I'm expending emotion, right? Because I'm trying to tie you, or I'm future pacing you in a sense, as regards to how it's going to look like when you're on the team. So that's a key importance. Be human. Make sure that you understand what is on your resume. Be willing and passionate. And when I mean passionate, it's exactly what Mike said, right? You want to be excited about what you're talking about, because you should be proud of what you did. This should not be an interrogation. It's a discussion. And I want you also to keep in mind what can make you stand out is to understand that in an interview, it's a discussion that goes both ways. We are trying to understand if you could be a person that could enhance the team. On the flip side, you should also, assuming that you've done your research about the company, that you have some type of understanding what the culture is like, also interview us to see, is it truly a fit?
Yes.
Because the door swings both ways most of the time. So just some simple things. And of course, there's techniques they can use, preparation, but those all, we don't have the time. We spend many, many weeks, not just in our tech mastery when it comes to interview, but also within the actual cloud program to help people understand how they will position themselves in an interview. But the key is be human. That sets you apart, regardless if you're doing engineering, if you're doing tech support, if you're doing any type of architecture, and definitely is going to make you stand out when you're going for those business type jobs, when we're talking enterprise architecture, even business architecture. So
cloud architecture.
Fantastic question. I love these type of questions.
Me too.
Keep them coming. Next question from Cloud Doctor. It says, hello, Mike and team. How do you think the role of a cloud architect will evolve in the next few years?
So Cloud Doctor, it's interesting. And I can tell you we were ahead of the curve in the way we've been treating cloud architecture and training cloud architects for a long time. And I'll tell you why. Most architectures are complete and utter disasters. And here's the reason why. You get someone that learns the tech, they get excited about the tech, they're the serverless favorite, or the I love this technology, or the worst thing they could have done is get 10 certifications from AWS, and they get a level of bias. Now, imagine you went to a doctor and they got certifications in 10 different drugs from one drug company, and they didn't learn all the drugs and all the treatments that were available for their patients. You walked in there with a robot and got Pfizer drug A, Pfizer drug B, Pfizer drug C. Now, a lot of patients would die because you would need different medications that you need. And at the same time, a lot of your patients wouldn't get better. And in some cases, you'd be using solutions that were worse and more cost effective. Because when it comes to treating your patients as a physician, and there's a reason I'm saying physician, you need all the tools. If Mark is my patient, I can't walk in the room, and I'm learning medicine was how I learned to be an architect, actually. But if I walked into Mark's room and he was the patient, and I didn't worry about getting Mark better, but I worried about how much money I could make by giving a prescription that I had stock in, I'd be a pretty bad doctor. I need to approach Mark with no biases, ask the right questions, figure out exactly what his problem is, and give him the best, optimized, and most cost-effective solution. Now, when I left medicine for tech, I went straight into architecture for obvious reasons. That's not true. I spent 3 months as a senior engineer, and then I was a lead architect right after that, and then I was a principal network architect within about a year. So, my whole life was in architecture. So the key is there's no such thing as a single cloud. Those silly days of I'm going to just get certified in AWS and I think I'm going to have a job, they're gone. Now, we never taught single cloud ever, because to me, it was ridiculous to put yourself in a single cloud, and now 98% of customers agree with me. Only 2% of enterprises use a single cloud. So if you don't understand how to make multi-cloud work, you are not employable. Now, the second side of these is most architectures actually are financial problems. So let's say you have, and I want you to understand it from the personal perspective. Let's say you've got $50,000 sitting around. You can put $50,000 into something. Let's say your education. And the next thing you realize, your salary you've learned business acumen. So you're a solution architect making $200,000 a year. Now you learn business acumen and executive skills, and now you're earning $500,000 a year. That $50,000 brought a huge impact to your life. Now, what if you spent that same $50,000 on a poker game and lost all your money? Which one would your spouse be happy with? Well, if I told you that about 70% of all architectures on the cloud take the company's money and give them nothing for it, literally nothing. It's like you played poker and you lost it, and now you got to survive it. So now that chief information officer says, I know we spent $400 million on cloud services last year, and I know we didn't get it. So that CIO is fired. And the architects that designed that disaster, they go with it because they hurt the company. Because the company is called opportunity cost, and you have opportunity cost in your life. You can only spend your time, your effort, your money, your calories on one thing if you've got a limitation of it. So keep that in the back of your mind. So I can tell you, the architects that I'm getting hired are more and more and more businessy, and they're not techies. They're not the engineer that's the super rock star on a technology. In fact, many times It's the people that are more salesy, the people that are more businessy. Because if you don't understand business, and your whole job as an architect is digital transformation, it has nothing to do with any of the nonsense that's taught in the certifications, the name of a service and how to configure that architects don't configure. It's all about optimizing our clients. So you're seeing more sales, more business, more leadership, more executive presence, more emotional intelligence. And I can tell you, I've lived through it. Cloud Doctor, my first actual architect job was called a design engineer. And I was the techie's techie. I was all kinds of geeky in those days, and it was fun. And then I became a technical architect, which wasn't an architect at all. It was a superstar engineer that focused on the technology. And then after that, I moved into a solution architect role, which realistically speaking, and I don't have a lot of need for solutions architects in my world, because a solution architect works for a company like Cisco or AWS or Azure, and they design, present, and sell you as much stuff as they can from their own company. Okay, great. Now, I deal with cloud architects, enterprise architects, network architects, people that are unbiased, people that will design the solution that I need. For example, your cheapest cost and your highest performance is going to be in the private cloud. I can get better performance at a far lower cost with OpenStack, Nutanix, or VMware in my data center than I ever can on the public cloud. But I don't have that agility in the private cloud that I do in the public cloud. I don't have that near unlimited scalability. So I put my systems in the private cloud and I connect it to a public cloud. And now if the public cloud goes down, who cares? Do you know in the last week, AWS had an Azure outage, Azure had an outage, and the Google Cloud all had an outage? So kind of keep about this when you're there. So I want you to think about that. Here's the other side of it. When we look at AI, I mean, Microsoft is leaps and bounds above the other cloud providers in AI. Google, by comparison, has the most experience in big data, because all Google's done for 20 years for the most part is collected data and done advertising based upon big data. So now Google's going to have some great experience with big data. AWS knows how to build infrastructure like nobody else. They have more stuff in their cloud that's available to you than almost anybody. So maybe I use some of AWS's infrastructure as a service. Maybe I use some AI from Microsoft, and maybe I use some big data from Google. That could be the best solution for the client. So it's all multi-cloud. It's there. So you got to think about it that way. You got to give your clients what they want. So we're not going to have people that get through with certifications only. And quite frankly, we haven't seen people that got hired since 2020 on the basis of certifications alone. And that's why some of these architectures are disasters. So more business, more exec. Now, what comes with more business skills and more executive skills? A lot more money. A lot more money. And I could tell you, when I got my first enterprise architecture job about 20 years ago, it paid about $250,000 a year. And now I know people in these big enterprise architect roles, chief architect roles, where they're still earning $500,000 to $800,000 a year. Now, they're not going to be the techies. They're not going to be the people you see on Twitch TV that are talking about tech. They're techies. These are going to be people that look like David Lithicum, that look like me, that have a good, strong understanding of business, that have a solid set of presentation skills, a lot of leadership skills, a lot of executive presence. They're not going to look like the person that passed their certification exam and now is teaching you cloud that's never worked on it. The kind of thing you would find on social media. So there's that. I hope that makes sense. They're going to look like more like a John Sarville at Microsoft. He's a chief enterprise architect. That's what your architects are doing. And those are the people that are moving ahead. And that's what companies are hiring for. And the more architectures that go wrong, the more companies realize, okay, we really need that architect at this C-suite level. I need them leading these teams. I need them truly getting the business. So Cloud Doctor, that's what we're seeing, and we're seeing more of it. I've had a VP at one cloud company come, a director at AWS come and talk to our students. And when he spoke to our students, they all in class, they said, look, we like your students because of this. They're not the hands-on techies. They understand the tech. They could real well, but they're people that understand how to leverage the tech to improve business outcomes. And let's face it, when it comes to sales, you have to build a business case for your client. If I've got a client that's doing $1 billion a year, actually, let's say $100 billion a year, because that's more likely for the kind of clients I would work with, and I can raise their revenue by 2% with maybe a recommendation engine, we're talking about $200 million a year of business benefit. And if my architecture only cost me $50 million, That's $150 billion or $1 million extra each year they're going to get. And that's how you sell. That's how you design an architecture. You stop worrying about all this other stuff. You focus on how do you transform the business. And if you look at Michael Porter from Harvard, when he talked about the key components of a business, it's the organization's people, the organization's processes, and the organization's technology. That's what we do as architects. We align the people, the processes, and technology. It's not just tech. That's the secret. That's the difference between a $500,000 architect and a $150,000 architect. It's going beyond the tech. It's going to business optimization and business transformation. And I got to tell you, it's the best job in the world. I've had it for decades now, and I love it.
Yeah, it's like you read my mind, Mike. The thing that came to my mind immediately was because of the failures that we've seen. It's so similar to what we've seen in the service provider space, where we had people that were too technical selling these solutions with the assumptions that they're going to play architects or even designers. And we've seen that while they weren't completely technical, meaning they didn't give you a bottom-up approach where everything was technical-based, the failures were too large. So we're going to see over the next coming years a transition further away and creating more of a divide between the people that are going to be technical and the people that are going to be business. Because businesses, they're not going to be able to afford continually rising costs of cloud, the failures that the different environments have made. So they're going to need a demarcation of delineation on somebody who can truly understand the business requirements, and then have maybe somebody below that, could be what now we would consider a solutions architect, actually come in there and now take those business requirements and develop them into functional requirements. So they're going to be a more low-level type of business requirements that we generally see. And I think that's where you're going to see a huge divide come about. So for all those that are aspiring to become engineers, I would definitely tell you all, including if you're a solutions engineer, focus on the business aspect of it. You'll find longevity in that type of role. And at the same time, you'll still have the opportunity to get geeky at here, trying to translate the actual requirements of the business towards those that are going to be more solution driven. So that's going to be one of those key areas that I see how this notion or this general market idea of what a cloud architect is going to morph into. And then something additional that I'll see with cloud architects happening is that they're going to have to become a lot more familiarized with the actual infrastructure towards service-based implementation. And what I mean with that is because of the failures that we have seen, a lot of people are going back to this, what we call multi-cloud, which also is hybrid cloud, where they're going to include more of the data center back into the mix of it. And that way they're going to try to controlling costs until they can get actually the design under control, until they can figure out again, okay, what is now feasible to accomplish this? And this is also going to be driven, of course, by artificial intelligence or generative AI actually instead of artificial intelligence, because we're going to have to figure out how we're going to keep our data protected as we go back and forwards, and how do we keep ourselves protected just in general when it comes to our workloads. We have many wonderful companies out there that are trying to solve that problem. If you think about most of the companies like Aviatrix, you have also Cato that's doing so with their backbone network. They're all trying to figure out how can we make this more viable solution so that we can have this cloud native approach compared to just having a traditional legacy approach from the data centers and creating backhauls from our on-premises towards the data center. So, but definitely is start focusing more on the non-technical skills to allow you that transition into what definitely we see with failures. And the way you do this is you have to start thinking from the business perspectives, right? You're not going to be able to sell technology if it doesn't work. And you don't want to allow technology to become so bad that the actual rapport, basically the reputation of the technology is going to drive sales down. So that's kind of like how you have to look at it. The technology has to be mature, and also so do have the business's processes to integrate the technologies. Because otherwise, what's the point of it? There has to be a reason why you're integrating it. And losing money, last time I checked, is not necessarily what the company is trying to accomplish. They're all in it, to make profit. And that makes sense. We all have bills to pay. Some have larger, some have smaller. People have this, I call it an unusual habit of wanting to eat food, actual food, right? So they have to worry about these things too. And that's something you have to keep in mind as well. Businesses run on people. So they also need to be able to attract, the right personnel so that it can drive the business solutions towards the technology solutions to be successful, right? So they're responsible also to their employees. And you can only retain good employees with what we call profit. If you have no profit, it becomes difficult to retain good employees. So just a few things to keep in mind, but definitely if you listen to a lot of things I said, I didn't throw out jargoning when it comes to technology like hypershield or some kind of kernel usage. It's specifically non-technical skills to get you where you need to go. Because in the end, if there's innovation, innovation is driven by demand. If we have demand, products can be sold. And if products can be sold, guess what? You can get a paycheck. So you'll have to consider from that perspective instead of just what is the new fanciest service that one of the cloud service providers figured out how to finally virtualize, like IPv6 or whatever else it may be. So hope that answers your question, Cloud Doctor.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next question, please. From Dingelman1. Hey, Mike, thank you for your bootcamp. I should sit for my CISSP soon. For a security architect, what can I do outside of work to demonstrate my competence?
So, Dingelman, that's a good thing. First, Dingelman, I know you. You need to finish your business training and your sales training to go from that security engineer at that incredible company you're working for to be a security architect. That's first. The second side of it is it's a lot related to the content you create. So, for example, defense in depth provides a great level of security. And zero trust is kind of a good way to get around some of the security weaknesses of the cloud. So the combination is defense in depth is not completely right for today's modern world. Zero trust, not there either. So you could create content that talks about the strengths and weaknesses of defense in depth versus the strengths and weaknesses of zero trust and why a proper security architecture would need that. You could write content on how data loss prevention strategies can help an organization. Or what is the correct demilitarized zone design for this type of a thing, for example? Or what an end-to-end security policy should include. You could create content on how do you quantify an organization's security risks? And from a risk management perspective, what are your architectural options to choose? Do you mitigate the risk with your technology? Do you transfer your risk with insurance? Do you accept the risk? Because you're never going to be able to solve all risks. See, this is all architect work. That's the exact opposite of a security engineer who might be configuring a firewall or might be configuring an Active Directory server. What type of a federated identity and access management environment should you use in an organization that's in this business? So architecture is about content creation. When I see people that want to be architects and they build me a hands-on project like a WordPress website, I'm like, okay, great. You just showed me you're not an architect. You showed me you're a systems administrator. What does an architect do? We meet with clients. We learn the vision of their business. We examine their business processes, their organizational chart, how things get done. We work with them to architect their business processes to get to those future business goals they have. We bring in a team to examine an organization's technology, and we then lead that team into creating a new technology solution to get that business to its business goals that are based on the organization's business processes. We help create a governance structure for that organization. We manage stakeholders. We manage vendors. We create statements of work. We respond to requests for information, requests for proposal, requests for pricing, or requests for RFQs. That's architect work. So anytime you show the world that you're doing architect work, it makes them more likely to hire you. Every minute you show you're not an architect by talking about something, being a techie, oh, I'm the serverless favorite, you show me not to hire you, and you show all the hiring managers not to hire you because you're showing them you're not objective. One of the biggest transitions from engineers to architects is engineers are very focused in their work. The engineers are the most technical people we deal with. They are awesome. We need them. I love engineers. They're super smart. But they're focused on what's in front of them. They have to be. It's their job. But as architects, it's that big picture. And the second we focus in on any technology, we lose. I had my first architecture job, and truth be told, they had a massive network outage and they had a BGP outage. BGP is always taken down internet service providers. It's always taken cloud providers. And admittedly, I'm a BGP expert. I've spent 10,000 hours on BGP. You name it, I've focused on it. And I was on that lead architect project. They had an outage. I went into the routers. I saw the problem and I fixed it. My manager said, "Good job fixing this. If you do it again, you're fired." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Mike, while you were fixing that thing when we had a tech support team, what was your team doing? You had 50 people on your team. What were they doing?" Like they were waiting for me to finish it. Oh, and then he said to me, "Okay, so you have 2 hours, $50 an hour, 50 people. So you now cost me $5,000. It was a $5,000 or $50,000 for that 1 hour, each hour that I was doing nothing." He's like, "Thank you for that. I've got cheap tech support people that could have done it instead of you." And he said, "Was your team focused on the next sale, which could have been $1 billion?" And I'm like, "No." "Was your team focused on your client's business?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What did you miss?" And I went, I don't know. And architecture always brings me back to this versus engineering. And I took these photos in my backyard, both because I like taking photos, although I didn't use my professional camera. Tyrone, share this. This is engineering. And this is what happens when you're focused in on the tech. So, Dingleman, this is in my backyard. See that squirrel? I love all animals. It's got a cute cottontail. It's got these little pointy ears. It's really cute. Everything looks good, right, Dingleman? Because I took a picture and I zoomed in on the squirrel. And when you're an engineer, you have to zoom in on the tech. Now, by comparison, this was really the danger in my backyard. That squirrel was in a lethal situation. Tyrone, share this. Now, in this situation, see that beautiful little girl with the pointy little ears? That's my cat, Cindy. She's like my daughter. I love her very much. Unfortunately, my cat, Cindy, has a nasty habit of hunting things and bringing me home these animals. And when you're the architect, you need to see that big picture because there's business competitors that are in the way. There's all these other business challenges that are in the way. And if you're focused on the technology, you're like that little squirrel, and you're not going to see that my friend Cindy is trying to eat that squirrel for lunch. So keep it that way. Keep it focused on the business. Show transformation, and you will be a rock star.
All right, let us go on to the next question, please. So from, I hope I pronounce this correctly, I'm going to try the first name only, Nyabulo. And they're asking, "Hi, Mike and Mark. Hope you guys are good. I am from RSA, and I have worked for a year as a performance tester, and I do a lot of front-end development work. I have the GCP PCA. How can I get my first architect job?"
Okay.
And happy birthday to you, Mike, by the way.
Happy. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So let's talk about this. What if you were a flight attendant and then you wanted to be an airplane pilot? Would that be a different career to you? The answer is yes. What would you do? You would go to flight school. I, at one point, was a paramedic, then a nurse, and then I ultimately became a nurse practitioner, practiced internal medicine. What did I do? I went to school. So the other case is you're going to have to get good training somewhere. And, you know, some of these things you can learn on your own, and some of these things you can't. You're not going to learn to sell on your own. You're not going to learn to lead on your own. You're not going to learn to re-architect business processes on your own. You're not going to know how to build a business case to convince a customer that they need to spend $1 billion with you on your technology. That you're going to have to be taught. Now, you can learn the underlying technology. So what it is, you need to learn the underlying technology and how the technology fits. So there's no code in coding in what we do, none. Knowing how to code, and I mean this in the right way. You know, Mark speaks German, he speaks other languages, I speak Greek in the home. And I would rather learn German than coding if I was talking about my business. But you still have great experience in Drilla, so I want to talk about your experience and how you leverage it. Here's the reason why. If I knew how to code, it would not assist me in designing things related to the cloud, which is networking technology and data center technologies. At the end of the day, the cloud is just somebody else's network and data. Knowing how to code is knowing how to speak another language. So if you want to learn another language, imagine this. Learning Arabic, and there's over 1 billion people that speak Arabic that you can talk to, that you can sell your solutions to. Learning German, there's 80 million people in Germany that speak German. That could help you. Learning Spanish, these are there because this enables you to connect with other people. Where have I worked? I may have been based mostly U.S., but I've taught college at a college in Athens, Greece. I used to go to Dubai all the time. I used to go to Hong Kong all the time. I was able to get by in English. I used to go to South America all the time and fake my way through it in Spanish because I can get away with a little bit, not as good as I used to be. So that would be there. Now, the good news is when you've worked as a performance tester, now you've been able to break stuff. That is very valuable because now you know where systems break. Now we're talking some gold from your experience. Now you might understand how the CPU in a router or a switch or a server works and how much that CPU can take. Maybe you're using Ixias and you're throwing a lot of traffic to the network and you see where the breaking point is. That is incredibly valuable knowledge in your system design. So what I want you to do is come tomorrow on the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, and we will tell you what to do. There's also a completely free ebook in the description of this video that will tell you everything you need to learn. But here's what you need to learn. The network and the data center, how all the underlying technology works, all of it, and how to put it together. For example, how does a server, you've got a server, what does it plug into? Does it plug into a router? Does it plug into a switch? If I've got two servers in the same VLAN and I don't want them to talk to each other, what can I do? I'm in a private cloud, I can do things like a private VLAN. I'm in the public cloud, I can't, but I might be able to do ACL. So understand that. So if you understand IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, BGP, right? Block storage, object storage, file storage, the types of databases that exist, when would you use a relational database? How would you scale a relational database? What business applications are going to optimize your client's business performance? For example, when we use an ERP system versus a CRM system versus a unified communications platform. So those types of things. Now we are talking something that's really, hopefully that makes somebody else. So then think about, where do you place your firewalls? Where do you place your ideas? How do you use
You started sounding like you're underwater.
I'm up now. Can you still hear me? Because if not, I'll switch off.
Now it comes through cluster clear.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't like an internet out of sync.
Okay.
Versus, my microphone. If not, I'd switch over to these things. It's not as good, but we can make it work. So
yeah, you're starting to cut back out again.
Okay, how about now?
Better?
Okay, so I'm going to keep this close to my face. So, think about all those technologies and how they fit together. And those are the things that we're trying to talk about. How do the technologies work under the hood? Not how to configure them, because you'll never learn it by how to configure it. Learn how that technology. How does a wide area network work? How does a VLAN work? What is that 802.1q tag that we need to send to AWS on a direct connection? What's it doing? How is it segregating our traffic? How is it keeping us clear? That's what you need to know. So learn those technologies and then make sure you get training in how to sell. I mean, the reason our architecture students are so successful and work at every company is we teach them everything. We teach them how to sell. We teach them how to lead. We teach them how to respond to RFIs, RFPs, etc. In fact, tonight at 6 o'clock, I have my students that are going to be working on a mission critical security architecture that you would use for a top secret governmental agency. And they'll be developing the data loss prevention strategy, the remote access strategy, every component of it, the IAM strategy. And then what are they going to do? They're going to have to design it. They're going to have to spec it out. They're going to have to present it back, and they're going to have to sell it to our C-suite, our actual C-suite, because that's what you do in the real life. So make sure you learn how to sell. And of course, we teach this. Make sure you learn how to lead. And of course, we teach this. Make sure your presentation skills are up to snuff, both because your job you'll be presenting every day, and the last interview of an architect job is a presentation. And that's where our techies usually fail, because they don't invest in presentation training. Invest in executive presence training. So you walk in the room and you can command the room. These are very important skills. Invest in learning business processes and business process reengineering. That's what gets you hired. So It's a new job. No, I love your performance testing background. That is huge because when you understand how things break, it gives you a lot of great information on how they're put together. The development work, not so much, but it's still going to help. You probably understand APIs a little better than other people would, and the types of APIs, which again is going to be a strong asset. So wherever you come at from architecture, it's going to be a learning curve. David Lithicum and I like to talk, and we like to collaborate and teach architecture stuff together. Huge respect for him. He's got that application architect background, that big AI architect background, which is what he used to get into cloud. By comparison, I've got that infrastructure and security background, the network, the servers, the wide area network, the security. That's my background. And you can come from either background. It really doesn't matter. But what you have to do is learn the overall pieces and the technology. You do that, you'll be great. But join us for the free webinar tomorrow, and we'll tell you. But you got to get that training. Now, the reason I created the program that I did is it was about $300,000 of education for me to get what I do. And I'm not joking. It's about $20,000 of sales training, $20,000 of presentation training, 20% of CXO relevancy training and executive presence training. But thankfully, a company paid for a lot of it. And I kind of keep that in the back of our mind. So kind of hope that helps guide you. That's why we run our training at our cost, because we're not in it to make money. We're just here to change lives. I had a great job, was able to retire when I was 34. I just love watching people get hired, and I love architecture careers. I think it's the greatest thing ever.
The thing that I like to add to this, Mike, is that when you make a shift from something that is predominantly hands-on, meaning you're part of the operations team, let's say even part of the engineering, where you're kind of starting to dabble a little bit into a design that was handed down to you, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I take this design now and create the proof of concept, if that's the first step in your organization, or just generally, how do I actually build the solution out? When you have that mindset, it becomes very focused, just like Mike showed us 2 images from our wonderful employee, Cindy. And it's going to be a shock on your system at first on actually trying to catch yourself wanting to constantly fall back on what's the first technology that I can work with compared to what was just communicated to me from the customer, or perhaps it was handed down to you from whoever did the actual initial sales call. Either way, if you're not doing cold calling, it could be that you're being handed the actual customer to eventually figure these things out. But it's that mind shift change that I think is going to be the one of the biggest impacts that people have when they try to transition into more of a business style role that actual architecture is. So if you find yourself kind of reverberating backwards because of you feeling comfortable with the technology, regardless if it's going to be towards the application end or towards networking or whatever the technology might be, just remember it's going to take this awareness of making sure that when you do fall back on the technology, to quickly shift back to focusing on the business. And that's something that we see very often when we work with our students as well, in trying to kind of course correct them a little bit, just to make sure that over time it kind of builds almost like a muscle memory, that your first reaction, if you want to call it, is going to be, hey, what did this customer just tell me? What was the actual business objective that we're trying to accomplish? And not so much, did they tell me something about a technology that they're interested in? Yes or no? So just keep that in mind. That seems to be what we found with people that have some type of technical background to be one of the biggest challenges. Yeah. It's not so much learning the actual skill set, but just making sure that you get your headspace right.
Yeah. Before we go to the next one, Mark mentioned our chief feline officer, Cindy. Tyrone, share the photo of my baby girl for a minute. She's with me every time we create content. Apparently, she was looking for something kind of tuna lollipop she likes, so that was the look she was giving me. But she's here with us with every content we create. She's never more than a foot away. All right, Tyrone, we can go back to the main content here. But, that's my Cindy, the chief feline officer. Hashtag Cindy, if you want to give me one. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Love my little girl. Adopted her from my wife, but found out she was a child.
Question from Pop K Dodge. Based on your experience, what are some key differences between a tech consultant specializing in cloud digital transformation and a typical cloud architect role?
Absolutely nothing. A cloud architect is a tech strategy consultant that focuses on digital transformation. That's the job. So The question is, when we start getting into consultant levels, if we're at the low paying level, it's the tech, like the technical and like the engineers and the architects. And it's the saddest thing ever, because these are the people that know the technology best. But which do you think is going to get you paid more? And I've done both. Me designing a $1 billion architecture and having $1 billion coming into my company. And I say, okay, give me $800,000 a year. And they're like, okay, Mike, you brought in $1 billion with 69% margin. So you brought in $690 million and you won $1 million. Who cares? Like, here, it's like dinner to them. Or the person that's so good at the tech, but at the end of the day, they meet with a client and the client doesn't adopt their solution. And instead of getting the $1 billion, they get nothing, but they're really great on technology. And Pop K Dodge, that was the hardest lesson I worked. Before I joined Cisco, I worked with probably the best technology company you can ever imagine. I'd say 50% of the company was IIT graduates, and the Indian Institute of Technology is probably the best in the world. And 50% of the people came from that. The other 50% of the us that were there were the people that just lived, eathed, and breathed technology. And you know what happened? We'd go to every client, we'd compete on the technology, and we'd win. Cisco would go in there, and then some good business sales reps and some good sales engineers and architects, they'd take the clients to lunches and dinners and drinks. They'd learn their business. They'd learn their business processes, and they'd say, here's your solution, and here's how it's going to impact your business. Here's a business case and an ROI model. Well, for every one that we'd win, Cisco would take 10 of them and eat our lunch because they were focused on that. So a real cloud architect is a strategy consultant in digital transformation. But you're still going to see those techies are the techies, and we need those techies are the techies, because a good architect like me would bring in those techies to focus on the tech. And architecture, I'm going to bring in, let's say I have a normal cloud architecture. I'm going to bring in some security architects. I'm going to bring in some identity and access management architects. Even though I'm a network architect, I can't focus on the tech. I got to focus on the big picture. I'll bring in a network architect, which means I'll probably bring in a network engineer as well. I'll bring in a big data architect. I'll bring in a data scientist. I'll bring in an AI architect. I'll bring in some DevOps engineers, some software developers, some cloud engineers, even some sysadmins. And why do I need this huge team? Because I've got to design something, and I need all the expertise of all these other people. And, the network engineer is going to know networking far better than the cloud engineer. And the IAM architect is going to know more about identity and access management strategies than the traditional security architect. So it's all about building and leading that team. So the better you are at that will determine how much you are. So a great architect like John Sarville at Microsoft's chief architect, who's now an enterprise architect or chief enterprise architect, a David Lithicum, we all do the same thing. We focus on the business. And that's why you'll see all of us that are doing real architecture work, and you can tell who's the architects versus who not. You see David Lithicum, I think he's written 17,000 articles over the years. You see him in magazines. It's the reason you'll see me in CIO magazine and DevOps magazine and Data Center magazine and Tech Republic and Tech Radar and Forbes and Investors Business Daily, and we'll be commenting on economic things because that's what we're focused on. And as you move up the architectural realm, you'll be focusing on that. And that's what's going to show you as the difference as the leader. So I hope that helps.
And as they say, titles can be quite deceiving. So you have a quite technical title, but depending on what you actually do at the job, it does vary. I've had technical titles before too, and I've done less technical work having those titles than I did having different type of titles. So just remember that it's fluid. It means nothing, but perception does matter when you're trying to communicate with people, and that's where you have to change their perception based on your competency in regards to what you do discuss.
Exactly.
All right, next question, please, is from Obai. The question is technology architecture the same as solution architecture?
Not really. Obai, so let me explain the difference. The technology architecture is all the types of technology you need. So what does that mean? So I've got a private cloud. Inside of that private cloud, I need routers, I need switches, I need firewalls, I need load balancers, I need servers. Then I go to the public cloud, I need the same block storage, object storage, file servers, load balancer. So that is all the technology. The technology could be inclusive of video cameras, video-based security, and everything. So the technology architecture is the big piece. The solution architecture, realistically speaking, is those servers are Dell servers, specifically this model Dell server. This is AWS EFS, as opposed to just, some NFS-based file store. So solution architecture generally means you work at a company and you design, present, and sell that company's stuff. Versus the technology architecture or the cloud architecture or the enterprise architecture is everything. Here's the problem with solution architecture. A company that's a solution architect, and if you work at Cisco and you're a solution architect, you design, present, and sell Cisco stuff. If you're at NVIDIA and you're a solution architect, you design, present, and sell NVIDIA stuff. If you're at Oracle and you're a solutions architect, you design, present, and sell Oracle stuff. If you're at AWS solutions architect, you design, present, and sell AWS stuff. Now, here's the reality. Oracle probably makes the best relational database in the world for enterprise business use. So my technology architecture may say relational database. My solution architecture says, yeah, let's use the Oracle one. Now I need a NoSQL database. My tech architecture might say NoSQL database. My solution architecture would then say, do we have a lot of read traffic? If it's predominantly read traffic, use MongoDB. If it's predominantly write traffic, because Apache Cassandra can write to all nodes, use Apache Cassandra. Now I need a router to connect to the cloud. Is it a Cisco router? Or is it a Juniper router? That's the solution architecture. But the technology architecture is I know I need a high availability router to the cloud. So the closer you are to the technology architecture, the more you're going to earn, the more value you provide for the business. And you can honestly look at a solution architect as a sales rep for a tech company that's focused on sales. How much of that tech that they make can they put into your architecture? Now, theoretically, solutions architects are supposed to be trusted advisors, but in many cases, they're getting sales commissions and sales bonuses. And you can't be a trusted advisor when you're that. So, when you get into the real chief architects and companies like that, Microsoft has them, Cisco has them. They have what they call these business solutions group. And I was an architect there. And in one of these solutions groups, you will go out there and you will help clients find the right solution. And you get a bonus based upon how well the company did and how well you did, and not what you sell. And that way you can come in there and be considered a trusted advisor as opposed to, a hired gun. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And that's why you'll see if a solution architect works for a tech company and they've got a new feature, they're all excited about it. When the rest of us say, oh, wow. And we, like, for example, last year, every AWS solutions architect was so excited they allowed IPsec over a direct connection. Legendary, it's going to change everything. It's going to change anything. And then all of us that have been network architects went, wait a second. Didn't Cisco do that back in 1998, not 2023? Where's the innovation? It's like, oh, wow, the cloud now supported what we did 20 years ago. Great, thank you. Not exciting. So the technology strategists would say, good. We finally can do what we need to on the cloud, just like we've always done. To the solution architect at a cloud provider, this is legendary. It's changing the world. It's exciting. Because that's going to get them more meetings to talk about more architectures, which can yield to more sales. Both are important. We need solutions architects to be motivated to sell stuff, because if they didn't, you'd never see what new products and solutions are there. So it's an important role. And they will also not let the salespeople sell something that's not going to work. So we need those solutions architects. But realize the closer you get to one thing, the closer you get to the business, below the business, the tech. And once you start getting into that solution-y oriented stuff, your opportunities and pay is typically going to be lower. Now, unless you work at an NVIDIA and they can afford to pay you $800,000 you to be a solutions architect because you sell a lot, and that's another story, because they're making an incredible amount of money because they have by far the best product in the world for what they do right now. And it's not even close second to anybody else right now.
So I suppose we would simply look at it as one being a lot broader in the technology itself that we're dealing with, a lot closer to the actual stakeholders, to the business, while the other one, of course, being more restricted when it comes to the actual recommendations you can make. And it makes sense, right? I mean, it would be basically like you walk into a large retail chain store and you got all different type of products, and you can decide based on your need and on your preference what type of product you would end up picking up. But if you were to go to just a specific store that sells, what could we say, meat, guess what? You pretty much just have choice of meat. You may have a little bit different cut of meats because, maybe you require a little bit more fatty meat compared to not so fatty meat, but in general, you just get meat. You go to a large retail store, you can get meat, milk, cereal, water, all kinds of things, even fruit and vegetables. So it really makes a difference. Now, I will say this though. It is actually rather fun trying to match solutions, even if you're restricted, to business outcomes. And one of the reasons I say that particularly, especially those that already are in that type of role, either in some type of engineering, kind of transitioning into more of an architect role, but either way, you're still dealing with the solutions. It helps you be creative, and it helps you also practice not be simply biased on trying to sell something. Because in the end, if the customer can trust you, that you're going to recommend something, even within the confines of a vendor. I mean, many customers are locked into vendors. We're not saying that they're not, right? If you go with a cloud service provider, you're still going to be locked partially into their ecosystem. Just like if you go with a service provider that's going to lock you into other things, right? We look at Cisco, Juniper, you can get locked into their, either way, you're getting locked in somehow. So it's not necessarily the bad thing. The key is going to be can you still match the solution, whichever it may be, to the need the customer has? I know for myself, I've had to tell customers many times, I'm sorry, I just don't have a solution that would fix 100% of what you're looking to fix. I can get you about 80, 85% there. If that's good enough, then I would like to talk to you further and see on how we can accomplish this and perhaps find other ways on how we can mitigate the 10 to 15% that we couldn't cover. And maybe down the road, there's going to be a solution that we would be carrying that might address your need. If we need to work with any other vendors to do some type of interoperability, I'd be willing to do that as well. And you'd be surprised how many customers look at that from a sensible standpoint. They look at it from being honest with what restrictions you're working with. And guess what? 9 out of 10 times, they'll sign up with you. If you can present them also with, and this is where the technology architecture comes in, with an actual roadmap on how that would come about, right? So provide people something that they can easily see on how they would move about step by step. Because generally speaking, people are blind as to what solutions you might offer. And that goes also with architecture. It doesn't matter if the cloud network architecture, you have to present people with a roadmap so that they can understand, they can visualize it. Many times we say that sales is not just logic, but also emotional, right? You want to have people invested into the solutions so they understand it, how they can get rid of some of the pain points. But the key here is going to be detail, like with everything. The devil is in the detail, as they say.
Yeah, Tyrone, let's go to Dhruv Shah, because this is the most important question that people almost don't ask. And it's the why reason we stopped selling engineering courses here. So how is AI going to change the cloud architect landscape? It's going to create an incredible number of jobs. AI is a disruptive technology, meaning it can change the way we live, we work, we play, we do business, which means everybody and anybody is using AI, including our company. We use lots of AI, and we were doing research and additional things, so lots of AI. So every time there's a new technology like AI, it creates new architect jobs. And here's the reason. Architects don't code. Architects don't configure. Architects don't write Terraform scripts or Bash shell scripts or any of that. They meet with clients. They ask about their business. They ask about their business goals and pain points. We lead large teams. We take our clients to golfing. We take them to sporting events. We take them to dinner. To put it into context, 1 year I spent $100,000 on my corporate credit card, which is paid for by the company, as an architect entertaining clients, because that's what we do. We lead, we present, we sell. And what's so special about all those things? They're all human to human. So architect jobs, AI increases the number of architect jobs. No, engineering jobs, like cloud engineering jobs, and I love engineers. Look at what the bottom 50% of engineers do. They write a Bash shell script. They write a basic Terraform script. They write a Windows PowerShell shell script. That kind of stuff AI can do today. So what you'll see is the bottom 50% of the engineers that are out there are the ones that are just glued to their system that are coding. There's not a lot of need for them in the future. You can replace them all with AI. What we will still need, and the architect's jobs get enhanced. Now, we still need engineers, but the kind of engineer we need is not the kind of engineer that sits glued behind a desk all day. It's the kind of engineer that can work in teams, that can lead teams of engineers for engineering projects, that can give presentations that I can bring with me on a sales call as an architect to be that deep tech guru that can answer the client's technical questions. They can give a presentation, that can write, that can create thought leadership. So AI just increases the cloud architect jobs dramatically, the AI architect job, the enterprise architect. But it makes it that companies no longer need a percentage of their engineers. The best of the best engineers, we will always need them. But the people that have those junior level skills that focus on 10 different junior level certifications in 10 different people's careers, sadly, there's no need to hire them. We needed to code something inside of our company. We don't hire software developers. We use Cloud 3.5. It's done. It's simple. I want to write a Terraform script to do something on my 10 computer OpenStack cloud. I'm not an engineer. I don't code. I can have one of my interns literally go to Cloud 3.5 and write a Terraform script, and poof, it's done. They can just edit it and tune it. So lots more jobs for architects and a lot less jobs for engineers. And that's why we had an incredible cloud engineering program. Lots of people got hired. People were signing up every single day for it. And we decided to stop selling it because I didn't want to train people for a job where there was not going to be a lot of opportunity. I love engineers. I feel we need engineers, but we need the best of the best in engineers. And as far as architects go, we need the best of the best at digital transformation and business processing improvement and leadership. So it changes that. The days of, the hands-on techie doing the junior level stuff, the intro level careers, we don't need them. Now, you never have to have an intro level career. I never did. My first role was a senior engineer, and within 3 months, I was a lead architect and a principal architect within 2 years. There's no such thing as an intro level job. There's intro level skills. So train yourself for senior level skills and principal level skills, and you'll be there. Like an airplane pilot. You know what the first job is? Flying a plane? An airplane pilot. You know what a physician's first job is? Doctor. You know what a lawyer's first job is? Lawyer. And it's all based upon how good you are, how skills you are, and how powerful you're willing to train yourself. So AI adds more architect jobs and a lot more of them.
And let me add to this. I read an interesting article about a day or two ago, and it was dealing basically with the outsourcing market that went to India. And they were even describing that they wanted to use AI to get rid of some of these low-level type of, think of them like first type of support type of jobs. And they did particularly mention one of the reasons they wanted to get rid of them is because the workforce that they have a lot more potential than just doing these rudimentary tasks of answering an email or picking up a telephone call, and then doing these things that we know technology even today has the ability to sort of resolve on their own. And we see that already is a trend also that's been in the past when it comes to network engineering, application engineering, all of them, where we're looking for ways to automate the systems as well, to free up the engineers that have spent so much time, money, and effort in learning critical skills on how deep technically they have to be in actually bringing about a solution and building that solution out. So we don't want to be wasting that type of skill set on, let me have you configure a VLAN, right? Because you can go in there, you type in config T and then VLAN and the number, and you're done, and you give it a name, you move on. Then you might go to the actual interface and assign a port, something very simple, something that's rudimentary. Now, if you do that one time, fine. You do it for a test, fine. What if you have to do it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1,000 times? Right? You're wasting the skill set, the potential that that person has. So some of the skill sets that were specifically mentioned that are going to become more dominant, that people will have to be able to upskill, is going to be things such as critical thinking. How do you actually think about a matter? Do you think it through? Do you just react to it? Do you get rid of it? One specific function that they mentioned is design. They wanted people to be a little bit more cognizant of the overall design, either if it's going to be system design, network design, but generally they wanted people to look more of a holistic picture of how these things are going to work together. And AI does fit into that picture because AI, like a lot of things, is a tool. In this case, it is a tool that, depending on which perspective you have, it could be one to actually be more financially viable, having products that are more financially viable. It could also be to empower your employers or employees to be more efficient at their job and focus on the things that are really going to make a difference. So from that perspective, it does not have to be, now we know we use this disruptive technology. It's going to be disruptive because they want you to focus on what makes you best. And that is going to be these human qualities of interpersonal skills, critical thinking skills, things that need this type of adjustments that we human beings can make on the fly. And don't be fooled by all this generative AI that you see. It is still based on mathematics. It's still doing some type of predictive measurement on what is going to present to you based on a particular pattern. And that pattern is going to be based on the input that you provide, but also on the input on which that system was trained, right? And that's where we see these biases come in. So from that perspective is how does the cloud architecture landscape actually change? You're going to need to develop those skills that make you human more. And that's how it's going to change. Aside from that, it is very important from an engineering standpoint, from a tech support standpoint, architecture, even from the CEO and CIA, and Mike knows this very well, standpoint, to consider it as a tool to make you better and everybody else around you better. And we're going to go through some growing pains because that's what we do as human beings. We get excited about a technology and how it can empower us. And we make mistakes as we go along, as we try to figure out these nuances or intricacies, as they say, the complexities of these different systems. And as we input more data to it too, we're going to see different type of results. And just like cloud architecture, just like network architecture before there, and all these different type of architectures that we have dealt with, it's going to take a little bit of time to mature. And once it does, that is when you're going to see that next stage in sort of like human evolution, where we're going to get much closer into actually doing what we're great at. Problem-solving skills, creativity, driving our ability to help businesses drive forward. And that's where I see AI really making that change for us. But it is still at its infancy, believe it or not. It's going to take a little bit more time for generative AI to catch up where originally AI has been used for, I want to say probably, what are we talking, 25, 30, 35 years, right?
The last 25,
AI,
30
roughly?
years, my AI architectures have even been focused on banking and algorithmic trading systems. AI is used widely in social media algorithms, in which case I've used it with fuel option purchase price contracts to try to mine through economic data, that kind of thing. So we used to use it to generate inferences on business data. What's really new is the ability to actually generate actual content from it or generate code, those types of things.
Yeah. So it's gonna take a little bit of time, but it is there to help you improve yourself. But for you to take full advantage of it, you do also have to adjust, be adaptable. And you know what the wonderful thing about human beings is? And we just had I hope Mike doesn't use, I'm going to use him a little bit as an example, is he had something to eat that, generally speaking, Mike doesn't always eat, like a nice cheeseburger or maybe a pizza. And he had some little repercussions from it. But it didn't define him tomorrow. He adapted to it. He felt a little queasy maybe, because he's not used to it, but he adapted to it. And that's what makes us human beings special. We have this extraordinary ability to adapt to our circumstances. Now, sometimes it does come with consequences. We'd like them to be positive. They are unfortunately not always positive, but when they are, we flourish. We gain skills, understanding, and mentality, a disposition that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And that's where we're going to be headed. But you need to be able to be adaptable and move with the flow. And Bruce Lee said it too, right? Be water, be flexible, be adaptable. Don't let yourself be abused, of course, but be adaptable to changes in your life. And believe it or not, meditate a little bit on it, because I'm pretty sure you've adapted to many different aspects in your life already. Absolutely. So this is not going to be so different for you either. And we have a question from Pop K Dodge. They're asking, what are some key strategies for adopting a multi-cloud approach? And is there a part two? Okay, so part two says, I believe that understanding the underlying technology behind each service and its role in the broader architecture is crucial. Yeah. What other factors should be considered?
So here's the question. When we deal with multi-cloud, we first have to see what is the goal. Is the goal higher availability? For example, both AWS, Azure, and Google all went down in a week. And if you were multi-cloud, you wouldn't suffer from that outage. And let's say we have an organization like a healthcare system or an emergency service systems. When their tech is down, people die. So they can't have outages because they're just sitting in one cloud. That would be ridiculous. Or a bank. Let's say you've got a business that does that could lose $1 million plus per minute if they're not operational. They can't be in a single cloud, excuse me. But maybe you're using multi-cloud because each cloud does something a little better than the other one and you want to use it. So first we have to understand the goals. We have to understand what we're doing before we need it. You know, when I used to practice medicine, I didn't just give everybody the yellow pill. I went in there and I looked at their conditions and I said, okay, you have pharyngitis. It's typically caused by beta hemolytic strep group B that's typically susceptible to a penicillin. Mark, you allergic to penicillin? He'd say, no, I'll give you amoxicillin 500 milligrams 4 times a day. 5 minutes later, somebody came in with sinusitis, which is typically caused by strep, pneumo, Haemophilus influenza, or Moraxella catarrhalis. And I'd say, okay, for this, I might give you levofloxacin, or I might give you this. So I used a different medication for this. And honestly, when I learned medicine, that's how I learned architecture. So now we need to understand what we're dealing with. What is the business goal we're trying to get to? That's the first and primary thing. The business goal and the business process will determine what we use. For example, one technology will force you into a business process. Another technology will not. So we first have to get the business component right and the end goal and the problem we're treating and what we're trying to go. All that comes first. Now, how do you make multi-cloud work? Very easily. Multi-cloud, we've been doing it forever. A private cloud is a data center, and every business I've worked with for the last 25 plus years has had more than one data center. Very simple. Now, what are the keys to multi-cloud? No proprietary things. So don't use any managed databases. So that means any database that's owned by AWS, like Aurora or DynamoDB, it's trash for multi-cloud. Microsoft Cosmos, trash in multi-cloud. Google Cloud Bigtable, trash in multi-cloud. Are these good databases? They are incredible databases. But, Mark, Posi Sesembra, Agoim Adaxi, Asis Adaxi. No, he can respond to that? No, he can't because he doesn't speak Greek. So if I use an AWS proprietary thing and an Azure proprietary thing, now I got to translate Greek to English. And when you translate one language to another, now you got complicated integration and some things don't translate. So we don't do this. Now it comes to Kubernetes, right? Everybody's using Kubernetes for the most part if they've got containers. Don't use Azure Kubernetes Service, Elastic Kubernetes Service on AWS, Google Kubernetes Service. But maybe OpenShift from IBM Red Hat, you can stick on servers in each cloud. And that way, when one of the clouds goes down, your containers are working on the other one. So there's that. Your routers run standards-based routing protocols such as OSPF, IS-IAS, or BGP. Again, we're not dealing with anything proprietary. When it comes to security, guess what? Instead of dealing with the cloud providers' Swiss Army knives of stuff that's just about good enough, we deal with a Cisco firewall or a Checkpoint firewall or a Palo Alto firewall or a Fortinet firewall, and we stick them in all clouds. So don't use things like Elastic Kubernetes Service. Deal with a standards-based Kubernetes cluster. Either you make it yourself or you get a managed system from something called OpenShift. Don't use pretty much anything that's got a cloud provider's proprietary name on it. It doesn't work. Virtual machines work on all clouds. Containers work on all clouds. Kubernetes works on all clouds. IPv4, IPv6 works on all clouds. I can run whatever I want on any virtual machine in any cloud. So just get rid of the proprietary stuff, which is 50% of the stuff that's taught to on a certification, and use the open standards base. And then I can have all my clouds talk to each other like nothing. It's child's cake. It's not harder. It's more about knowing which is the proprietary stuff that the providers like to push. And why would a cloud provider push the proprietary things? Well, it's kind of like this. If you use my proprietary stuff, you're in jail. You can't get out. Might cost you $50 million to get in. It might cost you $50 million to get out. I don't like that. If you use a standards base, and it was like a networking, I worked for Cisco, and they had this routing protocol called EIGRP. Mike, how come you never use EIGRP? When somebody asked me one day, and I said, because it's not in my client's best interest. They may have some Juniper routers in here. They have some extreme switches. I want to lock them into a flexible, agile solution that will work for them 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And guess what? We don't lock them in. I'll sell more than if I lock them in anyway, and they feel like they're handcuffed to me. And I did. I brought in, closed deals that were bigger than almost anybody, but I don't use proprietary stuff unless there's a reason. Sometimes somebody's got a technology that's just so good, it makes sense to use proprietary. But unless it's substantially better, and just telling me our people don't need to know as much to use it, it's easy, we manage it for you, then you get into something else. Do you really want somebody else managing your stuff? I mean, literally speaking, half the world allowed CrowdStrike to manage their security. And what happened? It was a disaster. It took down half of the Windows systems in the world. Somebody else managed it. I don't really want somebody else managing my stuff. Microsoft Cosmos was hacked multiple times. Microsoft managed it. And, when you manage it for 1,000 customers, you can't secure it the way as if you do it for yourself, because you've got to be more open. So do you even want the managed service? So when you have to think, do I want a managed service? What do you give up? You give up control. To a degree, you give up performance, and you give up security. You gain simplicity and elegance. Is that the right trade? Maybe. I use a managed service for our course. It was very inexpensive for us to use one of the content management platforms for our training courses. Now, here's the problem. They're only on AWS. Every time AWS has an outage, I know about it because my students say I can't access my course. To me, that's not good enough. But they gave me a good service at a good price, and if I had to build the system, it would cost me a lot more, so I choose to use it. So Pop K Dodge, it's all about looking at the situation, looking what the goals are, and then creating the right strategy for that client's goals. But generally speaking, don't use anything proprietary. You got no problems.
Yeah, Mike mentioned a lot of things such as best in class service, right? You pick the best services that you have to pick from. You can mix and match them at that point. That's the nice thing about anything when you have choice. But when I think about key strategies, and for most businesses, it's going to come down to money, but money from different perspectives. One of them is going to be in being able to manage your costs more effectively, especially if you have some bargaining power across different providers. So that's going to assist you, especially if you're going with a mix between a private cloud, which is going to be your data center, that either you're just going to run in a traditional manner with some automation on top of it, some software-defined networking, or you're going to run some type of public cloud platform like OpenStack or something like that. And you're going to tie that into your public offerings that you might have from any of the 3, 4, or 5 different cloud service providers. And you use them to provide agility to your business back and forth, maybe some bursting if you want to spin up some additional resources in the cloud, just to allow that bursting from your private to your public clouds. So you can kind of boost your performance and also your availability. But where I look really at one of the key strategies is going to be in regards to also business continuity as well as disaster recovery. And one of the reasons I mentioned that I've sat through a few private cloud disasters, which took some finagling, as they say, on just trying to get the customer whole again, even though while the private cloud service provider is down. But I recently read a key statistics, and that is that cloud outages are actually on the rise and not on a downturn. So it used to be that for most kind of outages that we see, you could kind of say that 80 to 85% of them are caused by our, let's call them traditional service providers. So our Verizons, our AT&Ts, our British Telecom, stuff like that. And even within the past 8 months, we've now seen the statistics actually shift more towards cloud outages, where it just used to be maybe like 15 or 20%. We're now creeping into the 25 to 30% range. So it seems that we're slowly getting to the point where if we keep moving, we're not just going to have 200 or 300 different outages of cloud providers a year. We're probably going to eventually move into the 500 to 600 different type of outages. And we're not always talking about complete outages, right? So you can have an outage in a service, but if you have resilience in your network, you can actually kind of avoid the outage, right? You can move across a different service. You can do that to a specific point if you've designed it. But from that perspective, that is a key strategy in trying to minimize the amount that you can actually be at a full outage, right? You can never avoid all outages, but to minimize the overall outages that you can take in your network is going to be key. So that's where I see one of the key strategies be. And another key strategy that I really think about is going to be in regards to your ability to take advantage of whatever you can negotiate with a cloud service provider. And the reason I say that is you might find that if I don't lock myself into a vendor, number one, I can spread across all the different cloud service providers. So that's going to be key, right? We like that. But at the same time, what if, I'm not going to pick on Google, let's pick on Microsoft. What if I like the integration of my Microsoft systems into Azure? What if I like that? But all of a sudden, Microsoft decides, you know what? Your contract is coming up. We're going to raise your rates because making 20 to 30% a year wasn't good enough of a profit. We want to jump that up to something else. We're going to increase your cost with us 100%. Well, if I have a multi-cloud approach, guess what? Now I can actually look at the strategy of seeing would another cloud provider be a more viable solution and bringing down my cost? Because I'd rather bring down my cost through technology than letting people go, because I need good people, especially if I have them. So that's one of them. Or perhaps can I shift this initial operational expenditure that I have because I'm renting basically the infrastructure and different services from the cloud service provider? And is it more viable perhaps to shift this particular service or infrastructure in-house? That might be a viable solution too, right? But in either case, there's probably at least 10, 15 type of strategies that you can look at, and they do vary a little bit based on the type of business you're in, right? We're talking about resiliency, redundancy, availability. Everybody likes them. But for example, who is going to be more, and Mike can chime in on this, more adapt or more willing to pay the big bucks to receive 5 nines or 6 nines? Is it going to be a more healthcare government type of facility, or is going to be the mom and pop pizza joint down the road that wants to use cloud for the agility to be able to go? Who's going to pay for that, right? So just
People
one of the
that
considerations.
And the cost of downtime. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about the business. Good question so far today. I love it. Tyrone, you can bring in the next one.
From Kojo, in this fast-changing IT industry, how do you stay relevant as a cloud architect, enterprise architect, if you want to become a subject matter expert? Are there industry magazines or journals?
Well, first, Kojo, technology is the slowest moving industry I've ever seen in my entire life. If you're on the outside, it looks like it's moved fast. The first cloud I worked with was ISDN cloud in 1993. Then I worked on another cloud in 1996. It was called the Frame Relay Cloud. Around 1998, I worked on the ATM cloud. In 2000, I worked on the BGP cloud. In 2001, I worked on the VPLS cloud. The only thing that changed is we added server storage to it, and it's the same silly cloud. So cloud computing is 25, 30 years old. Don't think it's new. All the stuff that you see on the cloud, things like VPC flow logs, that was Cisco NetFlow back in the year 2000. Direct connection to AWS, 25, 30-year-old technology. Virtual machine, admittedly, that's new. VMware created the EC2 instance, the Azure VM, the Google Compute Engine instance in 1999. NoSQL databases were designed in 1970 via IBM. The relational databases are about 1970, 1980 as well. Load balancers are a good 30 plus years old. Firewalls are approximately 25 years old. ERP systems and CRM systems and supply chain systems, they were really innovative when Walmart adopted them back in 1996, but they're pretty standard in today's world. The first AI systems that I actually used was for a big bank. I helped design them, and that's so we could look at news stories and determine whether to buy or sell stock or options at the time. None of this is new. Now, the speed of these technologies is new. For example, the first router I worked with had a 20 megahertz CPU and about 8 megabytes of DRAM. Now I can get, a lot more than that. So think about that. That's changed. Nothing has really changed. So how do you know? First thing is you learn the technology. Network architects and like Mark and I, we don't go read some proprietary book. We go to the Internet Engineering Task Force and we look at the actual specifications. Then we go to the International Electrical Engineers that made other specifications. Then we read books that talk about BGP. Now that same BGP works on Arista networks, Cisco networks, Juniper networks, every network, because we're learning the technology. And if you truly understand the technology, David Lithicum and I can tell you, we haven't seen much change in the last 30 plus years. So there's that. Now, you have to get the fundamentals. And if you understand the fundamentals, the next time some cloud provider says, oh, exciting new technology, you're like, yep, been there, done it, worked with it for the last 3 decades. Huh? What? It's brand new. No, it isn't. And so there's that. Now, the next thing is, what do you read? What if I tell you there's a major difference between what highly successful people read and everybody else? Unsuccessful people typically go to Reddit and they get opinions from people that typically didn't actually have the job. And they're hoping to get a job and they get their guidance. Highly successful people tend to read other things that more highly successful people. How do you stay informed on business? You read The Economist. You read the Financial Times. You read the Wall Street Journal. You read Forbes and Business Week. That kind of keeps your business acumen up to date. And that's on my reading list. I look involved in various technical publications. Information Week was one I always paid attention to. Light Reading was one I always paid attention to because I was more networking. But go out there and look at the major security publications out there, the major data center publications, the major, AI publications that are out there, big real print magazines that you can actually buy. The people that have invested enough to have a print magazine. Now, that doesn't mean you can't read it online, but they're the sophisticated people. When someone writes, who do you read? Is it written? And there's some great content by John Sarvel. He's Microsoft's chief enterprise architect. It's solid. Now, I got to tell you, the people making Azure courses out there are not solid because most of those people have never done the job in their life. You read David Lithicum. It's great. You watch what John Chambers is talking about. It's great. You look at what the Microsoft CEO is talking about. It's great. What's the IBM CEO talking about? What is the AMD CEO talking about? What is the, the NVIDIA CEO? Now you're going to see where the world's changing and the world's going. And, about a year before we cut our engineering in favor of architectures because we knew, the shift from hands-on to business work. But when the NVIDIA CEO said 5 years from now, we won't have software developers, he wasn't joking. Because the AI is getting to the point that I can say, write me a program to do this, 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 and this. And it'll do it. You can literally code a chess game to play chess in Claude 3.5, ask it a couple of questions, and you'll literally be playing the video game that it designed for you. Now, that, all the tech futurists already knew. But you're not going to get it. So separate yourself from what I call low quality information. Stay out of forums. Read things that are by tech leaders. You want to read a book on business acumen? Let's say microeconomics or macroeconomics. Use the same textbook they would use in an MBA program. What are they using at Wharton, for example, in their MBA program? Go read that book. That's how you're going to get good. What is the Indian Institute of Technology reading for an engineering thing or a technology thing? That's what you want to be reading. And if you read the real heavy duty stuff, it'll change you. You'll understand it better. But seriously, stay out of the groups and the forums that are put together by people that just don't know. And instead read the best, read the brightest. You'll go very far.
Yeah, and I'll just briefly add this to this. If you're on the engineering side, it seems fast changing because people are just pumping out products. But predominantly what you're really dealing with is just trying to understand how the services are implemented so that you can eventually build it and implement it. So that's where you feel like it's constantly changing, right? Because one time they tell you Python is great and C# is great. And then they come up with, I forgot what the other one is, Rust. They come up with all these different languages because they tell you it's going to solve the best thing. Many of the vendors, guess what? They'll have to generate money over and over again, right? They'll conquer one space, now they want to go in a different space. So now they come up with their proprietary way of doing things. So from that perspective on how the service is implemented, that's where it becomes very challenging. But for example, I read an article now that was discussing how do we solve some of the issues that may have plagued a particular protocol. So they were looking at BGP and they were looking, how do we make BGP a little bit more secure? So the idea was now to look at, instead of running BGP across TCP, which it normally has, because then TCP can take care of the segmentation issues and the fragmentation. It can also help with sequencing and just general what do we call it, a reliable exchange of the actual packets so that we have a reliable exchange. Most of the other network protocols, they have their own protocol stack that they use to accomplish this. So now that we're wondering, well, what if we use QUIC? And if you don't know QUIC, go ahead and research it a little bit. But this is something that Google pioneered for a while and then eventually was adopted as a standard. But they looked at QUIC, number one, because it runs on UDP. So now we don't have to worry about the overhead that TCP gives us. Not to say TCP is bad, but TCP was designed for a different type of internet era. It wasn't designed very much for ours. But then also they figured, well, potentially QUIC could be great because it can solve issues such as what if we have to do rekeying of the encryption? Because guess what? QUIC has encryption. So now we're solving that problem as well. So you see, it's just trying to solve a problem that exists with something else. But in general, if you look at a lot of technologies, let's say networking, what you notice, it almost has that hourglass kind of shape, right? At the top, you got the applications and you got 50 billion different applications. And DNS and all this also works. But interestingly, if you look at the middle, it generally is just one. It's IP. Regardless of IP version 4, IP version 6, it's IP. And then you got a couple additional technologies below it. And that's about it. So from that perspective, technology doesn't change as much as its application changes. And guess what? Many times the applications are horrible and they have to scrape them. If you haven't heard of Trill, look up Trill, for example. That's one of these things. But when it comes to being a subject matter expert, and I'm not going to delve too much on it because I think some people might have a different opinion than me. But as a cloud architect or as an architect in general, you cannot be the expert in the subject. And the reason I say that is it takes a lot of time and dedication to learn something and then stay on top of it. You can't do that when you have to consider business needs. You're going to have to rely on those people like the engineers, like the solution engineers, to stay on top of that so that they can eventually advise you if something is needed. But you can't do that as an architect. You won't have the bandwidth for it because you're going to have to focus on the business.
And if you do, Kojo, you effectively become a bad architect because you're focusing on an individual area of technology versus optimizing your client's business, which is exactly what you don't want to do. Cloud architect is everything. Can't be a subject matter expert. Enterprise architect is everything. Now, if you want to be an MPLS back architect, you can. If you want to be an IAM architect, that is a specialty architect position. Please understand the specialty architect positions will pay 1/2 or 1/3 of what an elite enterprise architect will be because your specialty is the business, not the tech. And that's why I started with reading The Economist and Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, Business Week, and things that are really focused on the business. Hope that helps. Great question, Kojo. Please feel free to ask them. Tyrone, let's get to the next one.
This is from Hakeem. Is it frowned upon if you have notes of your experience when going into an interview?
Hakeem, when you go into an interview, you should have a nice leather folio. Let's see if I have an example one that I can grab quickly. Not right over here in my office, but you'll have a nice leather folio, which will have printed out copies of your resume on beautiful linen paper, and you will hand them a copy. Your resume is your notes. Now, if you can't explain what you've done without looking at your notes, the interview is over. So, I want you to see the difference, and I'll give you an example. I'm going to talk about some people I've trained that never worked in tech, and then I'll give you the reading off your notes, and you're going to tell me which worked better. I can tell you right now that Jermaine Houston came to me selling landscaping gear, and when he left our program, he was hired as an enterprise architect. I can tell you that Daniel Bosu, before he came to us, and he didn't graduate high school, was working at Nordstrom selling shoes, but he left our program hired by JP Morgan Chase as a cloud solutions architect. I can tell you Delroy Batt was working on ambulances as an emergency medical technician before we trained him, and he got hired as a cloud security architect at CDW. I can tell you that Lenny Burnett was our video editor, and he got hired at Citrix as a solution architect. I can tell you that Ivan Tamba, for example, came to us working as a waiter in Atlanta, hired by AWS as a solution architect. Now, that's me knowing what I've done. Now, I want you to see this. Now, Coyote Edwin took our training program and was hired by AWS. Sonali was hired by DTCC. Rob Dodo was hired by PNC Bank. Amaranth was hired by Mel Media. Did that make the same impact? It did not. And, it didn't because, I'm reading something, I'm looking at my notes. And if you're going to be in there and have to look at your notes to know what you've actually done, the person's going to assume you're lying to them and you have to remember what you actually wrote down. So no, you can't do that. But you can have your resume with you and you can have your leather portfolio open with their resume and your resume when they ask you questions on your resume. But you can't read off of your resume. You need to be explained every line on your resume. Hope that helps.
Mike, let me add a little bit to that,
Okay.
actually with a question to the question, and let's get your take on it, because I think this might be a follow-up question that somebody might have, at least in their mind. Do you feel that it would be appropriate to have your resume there and be able to take notes at the same time as you engage with the interviewer without
Taking
using
notes,
it as
yeah.
a prop? Okay. So
Take
you can...
notes is acceptable. You have your nice leather folio and you can take notes. When the person says this job's really about transformation, not being a hands-on techie, you can actually write that down. So taking notes as part of your active listening is good, but you still got to look at the person in the eye as opposed to looking at your notes. You got to look them at the eye. You got to be there. You got to, and here's the other thing. So, Hakeem, you want to be looking at the interviewer, and here's why. When they're talking, when you answer a question and they're leading in, they like it. When they ask a question and they do this, stop talking or change the topic. If they point their feet to their door, they're trying to get out of there. And what you need to be able to do is look at them, look at the body language they're giving you, and change your tune. Now, Hakeem, I'm not joking. I will spend 40 hours preparing for a single interview. And why? When we look at an architecture job like a principal architect at Google, the pay range is $394,000 to $677,000. That's $300,000 there. And what determines that is both your ability to sell and it's how desirable you are on the interview. So you got two cars, right? You got two brand new Mercedes GLE 350s. They're really nice SUVs. I bought mine a while ago. I love it. I like to keep cars for a long time. It's just me. They're not an investment. I like to invest in things that appreciate, cars that appreciate. But that's me. I just love the car. It fits good. It hurts. It's comfortable on my back. But let's say I have two brand new ones. On one, it's got beautiful polish and it looks really shiny. And it's got, basically, I get in and it says, "Hello, Michael. Nice to meet you today. I've got some new speech service," but it's the same car. On the other car, somebody wrote graffiti all over it. They scratched it with a key. They took a baseball bat and they put some dents in the car. Both cars will still drive 300,000 miles or say 450, 500,000 kilometers. Both engines are brand new. But one of these cars is worth $100,000 and the other one is worth $25,000 because it's the packaging. So when you go on that interview, you got to show them that you're a leader. You got to show them what you can do for them. You got to know what they like and give them more of it. And you got to know what they like and give them less. If you went to social media and you got 1 million likes on one post, I'd say create more posts that look like it. If you created a social media and got hate feedback on it, I'd say maybe don't create another post like that. And you got to be able to read and look for feedback. So, Hakeem, look at them in the eye. Spend 40 hours, 50 hours preparing for the interview. I've never been on an interview and not gotten a job, ever. And on the 5 jobs I've accepted in my 25-year architecture career, 2 of them were better jobs than the one I actually applied for. But that's because I knew what to give them on the interview. You have to put yourself in the hiring manager's shoes. What do they want? And if you were the manager, would you want someone that has to look down and say, "Oh, I don't really know what I've done"? Or do you want someone that can talk about it with pride and conviction and look at you? So please try to focus on that. It's a great question you asked, and I know why you're asking it, organizing your thoughts. So spend the time, prepare for it, create a room, present the answers to your friends, present it to your cat. If you don't have a cat, a dog, friends, or children available, you put some stuffed animals and talk to them. I don't care. Just practice giving your speech.
Great response. Let's go on to the next question, please, Tara. It is from Foolish to Quo. That makes sense. In that context, what do you recommend doing to get that sales or business experience?
Well, Foolish, I'm going to give you 2 options. I'm going to give the option I did, and I'm going to tell you the easier and simple option. The easiest and cheapest option by far is to take our course. We pretty much run it at our cost. But you don't have to take our course. I'll tell you what I did. I recommend you take our course because, even if it was $2,500, the average architect earns $1,000 a day. So it's about 2 days' pay. And with a 50% birthday discount, it would be $1,250. So it's really nothing for what you're getting. But you could do what I did. I went and got a master's in business administration to learn business. And that's going to cost you about $100,000. Really, in today's world, that's minimum. And then what I did is I was sent to sales training for a cost of about $20,000, leadership training for about $20,000, executive presence training for about $20,000, CXO relevancy for training. And it took me about $300,000 to get this education. So I'm not trying to say take ours because I want to sell it. I'm trying to say you could take ours because you're going to get it all for the same price. And quite frankly, Mark had been a great architect in networking. And he came to us because he looked at it and he said, I can get an MBA for $100,000 or I can take your $2,500 architect question. And believe it or not, Mark and our team, and it actually get to me, sent about 15 emails before he even joined, more than anybody I've ever seen. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So, Tyrone, could you pop a link to our course along with the birthday coupon to make sure that people can get access to a 50%? And I see Julius is asking the question. So, Julius, our course is until you're hired. It's typically 6 to 12 months to get hired based upon the economy, but you can stay on our program until the day you're hired. We're the anti-boot camp. We don't just try to take people's money and say 16 weeks, you're out of here. We basically want you to get hired. And as long as you don't quit on yourself, we're happy to keep you on our programs. And quite frankly, we have some people that are working for AWS and other companies that still attend our classes even after they've been hired because they like it from a professional development and they like to go back and learn new things. So all I want is you hired. But either get an MBA and take leadership training like we have or take a course like ours. Because that
I'm, for example, not going to tell you go get an MBA because I actually looked at it. I thought it was too expensive, but I wanted a way to improve myself as well. Because let's be honest, irregardless of how well you do, this has been my experience. Mike can give me his opinion in a moment on this, but I always find ways how I can improve myself. So when I looked at sales, when I looked at this art of presenting, of selling, of improving my leadership skills, am I going to spend $100,000, $200,000? Go down the route Mike did, spend up to $300,000? Well, I can figure out better things to do with that money. And the reason I say that is I can go to a course that some people might look at, and say like, oh, this is a high ticket item. How can you be charging us that much for a course? Well, the key is you want to gain experience. Number one, you need to practice, but you also need to get feedback on your practice. And then you also need to be given almost like a step-by-step way of how do you implement the strategies that are going to make you a successful presenter as well as a successful salesperson. Now, some people believe it is as simple as providing the person with a wonderful proposition to solving the problem. But that is not the case. Because we also know that people sell based on emotion. And part of that emotion is going to be, do they like you? I know personally, I've walked away from products because I did not like the person that I was dealing with for one reason or another. So from that respects, I'm going to be a little bit biased here, but I also speak from my experience. We have countless testimonials when it comes to that. Get a key turn system that can teach you these skills and then some. Because not only are you learning how to sell, you're learning how to architect, you're going to learn how to actually present, and you're going to do this in a group setting, but you're also going to do this in front of various individuals like myself, Mike, Alonzo, Chris, to get feedback on what you can do to improve. And this in turn also is going to allow you to practice, which in essence is going to get you that experience that you want. Good experience that is going to make you effective. So that's why I'm a proponent for go for a course that is tailored for that. And in this case, the value proposition is going to be a lot higher because you're getting more than just sales training. And you're also going to get a supportive community that can help you from their experience as well, get yourself to the next level. If that's not for you, fair enough. Go spend $100,000. Go spend the $20,000, $30,000 that some speakers will ask you for one single session. And then the question is going to be, what do you do afterwards? So again, it is your choice, but I know what I would pick if I wanted to get much better at doing what I'm doing. All righty.
Second.
Yep, no problem. So from that perspective, go ahead.
So I saw a lot of people asking about coupons. Chris Fistic fixed it now works. The birthday actually comes out tomorrow, so I was actually trying to be excited about it, but the coupon was fixed for you, Mahidu, and others.
Well, I mean, on the bright side, look at it that way.
Yeah.
If people still have questions, they want to get off mute, they want to be able to interact with us, you can always join us tomorrow too for the actual how to get your first cloud architect job, which in essence also teaches you what are some of these skills, how they have helped Mike, myself, and others. And then guess what? The coupon definitely will be working by then. And it gives us an opportunity to act a little bit more, get to know you, and see if what we are offering is something that can actually help you. Because believe it or not, maybe it's not. And then I don't want you to, because it's not going to help you move ahead. We're here to help you get to the goal that you want and give you a plan that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And that's the only sales pitch you'll hear from me today, just so you know. All right, let's talk a little bit more about technology in Korea. So Madhu, what we get in a live cloud architect program versus the non-live program?
Okay, Madhu, they're very different in reality, and I'll explain the difference. We created the non-live program because a lot of people in the developing world say, Mike, I need a cheaper option. Here's the difference. For example, today we have a live class. If you're not in the live program, what'll happen is you'll get a recording of the live class. The people that are in the live class today, for example, will be in the live class. Today is a new architecture project, so they'll be able to ask questions in the live class. And I'll be able to coach them in the live class. In the non-live class, you'll get access to the same training content, but you're not going to be in the live class. When we practice an interview in the live class, I'll interview you, or my team will, and we will coach you on how to do a better job. In the non-live course, you will watch other people being interviewed and coached. In the live class, I get to know you. So I've got a student right now that's interviewing for a $200,000 to $273,000 base salary job. And she asked me for a recommendation. Why could I give it to her? Because she came to class, she participated in class, and she gave presentations in class, and I knew her. If you're in the non-live program and it's self-paced and you're not coming to classes and I'm not talking to you, and somebody says, do you know Mark? And I don't know Mark because I've never met Mark. How can I say I do? I'm actually writing a letter right now to U.S. Immigration to a student of mine whose visa actually went away because he's such an incredible cloud security professional that when he said, Mike, I'd like to stay in this country. Can I get a recommendation from you? I was happy to write it. The last thing CEOs do normally is write recommendations for people. But I think this person is so solid that the U.S. will be better for having this person. And guess what? The person's live will be better. So there's there. So if we're doing a presentation skills training day and you're presenting, in the live class, you'll be doing the presentation. And in non-live, you'll be watching other people. Will you get the same training? Sure. Will you get all the same architectural lessons? Sure. Will you get recordings of all the other classes? Sure. And that's how we were able to create a really great program at a lower cost, and an extreme low cost, less than a single day's pay for the average architect. But, and here's the big but, the key is it's much better to be there than it is to actually watch the recordings. If you can, if it time works for you, if you can afford it. But if you can't, I still wanted to make sure everything, and me and Chris and Alonzo and Mark and Leo and Tyrone and Eddie and Chow, we all got together and said, how do we make the non-live the best it can actually be? And quite frankly, we just did a massive, massive update to the program that I'm extremely proud about. We added it to the program. Our current students get it at no charge, and future students get it because we're all about, as the world changes, as the market changes, as skills need, we add. We just want to make it the best course we can. I hope that helps answer the question for you, Madhu.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next question from Hamed. It says, "Hello, Michael. I sent you a message about this on LinkedIn already for someone that can afford expensive courses. Is the ebook enough?"
No. And I'll tell you, so Hamed, here's what we talked about. In the ebook, we tell you what we do and every skill you need to learn. Now, the tech stuff, yeah, you can learn that tech stuff on your own. Can you do it less than the cost of our course? Probably not, but you can learn that tech stuff on your own. But in that ebook, when we say you must learn sales, I could send you to the Dale Carnegie Institute for a 2-day sales course for $2,600. I could. Well, of course, our whole class costs less than that. I could send you to Speak Easy for a 3-day presentation class where they'll do a good job, but that'll be close to $3,000 just for those 3 days. And you're going to need more than just those 3 days. You're going to have to take 2 or 3 courses there. So, that's why we've made the live and the non-live program. I don't normally go through my messages like that on a frequent basis. I typically do it every day or two. Hamed, I'll respond to your message later today after this presentation, because I definitely want to respond to it. But you definitely need the training, and the reality is, for what we have teaching in our program, the price is nothing. But I also come from another country, a developing country nation, as does Mark, and we understand it as well. For example, for the business acumen, I have 2 PhD professors that actually teach in an MBA program. For the marketing, I have somebody with a MBA teaching the marketing program. That's been a marketing executive for 30 years. My chief operating officer teaches operations, project management, that kind of thing. I go out there and teach leadership and how to sell. I bring in application architects. I bring in AI architects. I bring in enterprise architects. Kind of keep those kinds of things. So there's no way to do it. You can't learn these skills on Udemy. They will actually take 3 to 5 years of your time, and you're going to end up worse than you started, because the problem will be it's going to be taught by somebody that's never had the job. I will tell you that at least 50% of the Udemy course instructors have actually come to us and asked us to train them in cloud computing. And I say, but you're out there and you got 100,000 followers already and you're teaching a class. They're like, yeah, but I don't really know cloud computing. So that's what you're going to get that's out there. You're going to get a student that can't get a job, so they're trying to create content on Udemy in the large majority of things. So I can say maybe where you're at, you can get inexpensive education. You can go get an MBA for these business school things. But I will respond to you. But I kind of hope that makes sense. One of the reasons architects get paid so much is the following. You have to know so much business, so much leadership, so much sales, so much executive presence. And for people that are not taking our course, Alonzo's MBA was $150,000. Mine was $100,000. Chris's would have been, but he got a good break because his father was actually the dean at the business school. So we got him some discounted education, but that's just what it costs. The business school professors we have spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their doctorates. These are expensive skills to learn, which is really good when you ultimately have them, because you can't learn them on Udemy. That's what makes your skills so valuable, because we run into something called the supply and demand curve in macroeconomics, meaning for any given demand, the lower the supply, the higher the prices. It's the reason why when people were mining cryptocurrency with NVIDIA GPUs, that a $400 GPU was selling for $1,400 because everybody wanted it and they couldn't. It's the reason an NVIDIA H100 is $35,000 direct from NVIDIA. But if they're out of them, you can go to the secondary market and buy them for $100,000 for the card, because they're in short supply. So I will respond to your email, and I'll do the best I can to give you some guidance on how to do it as inexpensively as possible, because I really do care. But these aren't skills you can learn on Udemy. But they are that you can get in a university, and maybe you can get a scholarship where you're at. Maybe they've got a scholarship program for you to get an MBA. And that would be one place to get a lot of these things.
Yeah, now I'm not going to comment on pricing when it comes to the revamp that we have done and that's in the works of being released. But you might want to be on the lookout for that. So if you need to sign up for our newsletter or something like that, you should definitely do that, Hamed. But this is something that I would recommend you. We live in the information age. There's more than enough information that you can find. This will be my suggestion to you. Study the videos that are on our YouTube channel.
That'll be a lot.
Because It will build a wonderful foundation and get you ready for when you can afford. And again, stay tuned for what is coming. So, because it might fall into your budget if you budget it right. But definitely off the YouTube channel, you can garner so much understanding and knowledge and application to help you gain that wisdom. Because think of it, review the different boot camps that are on it, the shorthand videos that we have in regards to different type of architecture, what the different technologies are. There's plenty of interview, also training on the YouTube channel itself.
Lots of it.
Now, it's of course not going to be as involved and in depth as what we can do when we do these private group sessions, right? That's understandable. But there's more than enough to help you feel confident, competent, and really give you a leg up on the competition just by studying what is on that YouTube channel. And you'll find when it comes to a lot of the soft skills, looking at the Heads in the Cloud show, there's so many wonderful nuggets of truth that we add to it that you can apply right now already in the position you're in. And perhaps that can boost your salary so that you can get yourself in a position to take advantage of when we're having different type of sales, so that you can get the program at a little bit at a discount if the already cheap enough price that we're offering at our cost is not good enough for you. But definitely use what you currently have available to you.
And there's lots of good reading you can do about business, but stay away from Udemy. You want quality source. So, and then I'll get to the next one. One of the things I learned when I practiced medicine in my MBA program was quality information. Meaning a physician goes to a medical journal, like the Journal of the American Medical Association. They don't go to Udemy to be taught by somebody that's never been a doctor teaching them good medical things. There's lots of good books on macroeconomics and finance and building a business case and building ROI models and sales that'll get you a lot further for lower prices than you'll get from Udemy to be taught by somebody that doesn't know something. So I'd keep it out there. That's why you don't typically see a David Lithicum on a Udemy. You won't see me on Udemy. I just don't want my brand associated with the stuff that's on Udemy. I want my brand associated with what it's done, for me being in Forbes magazine, for example, or Investors Business Daily, or going out there and doing billion-dollar architecture. So I don't want people to see me as Udemy. So I'm happy to do it free on my YouTube channel, and I do lots of free training on my YouTube channel, but I don't ever want to have anybody think that I'm one of those Udemy people, because what I do is actually caring about people. I love my clients. I love them being successful, and I've yet to see anything good on Udemy. And I've looked. I tried. Hamed, I actually bought 3 courses for somebody before I decided to start this course. His name was Nathan and Vons. He was a friend of my son. My friend said, could you help my son get a good job? And I said, sure, he should become a cloud architect. And little did I know how bad the training was. So I bought him 2 courses on Udemy from 2 best-selling authors. And I bought another author course from someone on the same continent as these 2. After 3 days, the Nathan called me and he said, Mike, he said, I built an EC2 instance and I set up an S3 bucket. And he said, what is it? I'm like, what do you mean, what is it? You don't know what a virtual, tell me about the EC2 instance. Tell me about the hypervisor. Tell me how the virtual machine is. Tell me a managed memory. And he said, Mike, it wasn't in the training. I'm like, it's impossible, Nathan. I said, now tell me about block storage. And he said, you mean EBS? I'm like, no, tell me about block storage, how it works, the limitations, how it's arranged, how it's architected, why it's used. And I said to Nathan, I said, here's the thing. I told your father I would train you. If you literally watched 3 training programs and didn't know this, and it was in the content, I'll tell your father, I'm sorry, you're not paying attention. I said, now, Nathan, if what you're telling me is true and they didn't talk about anything on your 2 Udemy courses and the other course that you bought, only how to configure and click a bunch of boxes, I said, then you and I are going to write a course on passing the AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam and professional. We're going to do a free online boot camp, and we're going to give all that certification training away for free, because I'd rather it be free than having anybody go through that. That's why we did the Solution Architect Associate, the AWS Advanced Networking. Next month, we're doing a free Azure Solutions Architect boot camp. And I may have a security surprise for you coming after that as well. So, another cloud professional boot camp is coming from us too, because I don't want anybody to ever have to go to Udemy. I'd rather give it away for free as much as we can for free than see anybody get that. So that's why we do so much free stuff on our channel, because I've seen what's out there and I want to help you.
Yeah. And by the way, so you understand, we're not trying to vilify those that go on Udemy. We're not trying to vilify. But again, it comes back to this: what is the reputation that a platform like Udemy gets? I've had a couple of courses on Udemy. They weren't technical though, so let's get that out. They weren't technical, but they were great courses for what I was looking for to do. But the reality is, it's just like when you do certifications, right? You're really supposed to do the certification and then advertise them because they're going to help you promote your brand, who you are, your skill set, right? It's the same thing with the type of training. When you look at Udemy, any Joe Schmo can go on there, claim they're an expert. They can just punt up material like everything. Udemy will, of course, do its sales, $10.99, $11.99, $14.99. Heck, if there's a course I want, let's say on drawing or something more artistic, I love getting it because it's a low barrier to entry for me. But I'm not going to go on Udemy if I'm trying to learn about cloud architecture, because I would expect that type of person would not be there on that type of platform. It's the reputation that you get with it, the presentation of it. So when you're going to learn from reputable sources, and this might take some research. And that's why predominantly I say, if you like our message, if you like how we present it to you, if you appreciate that we're answering your questions, look at the YouTube channel that we have based on the content. And then feel free, if you feel like, hey, I want to delve a little bit more deeper in this or that. And let's say you haven't signed up yet for the actual career development program. Then compare what others put compared to us. And that's where you'll notice the difference. And that's why you need to be so careful with what you select. We always go back to this idea of opportunity cost. This is more the idea about what are you going to invest your time and your money in. Yeah. We know that time is a finite resource. We can't buy it. We can't make more of it. Money, depending on what your belief is, it's a scarce resource at some point. Yeah. But definitely spend your time wisely. And if you do have questions, we try to be here every week as much as we can. If you're not within the program, come and ask questions. And we'll do our very best to answer them within the allotted time and, of course, within the context that we can.
You know what? You're right. There is one course that I found that was okay on there. There's a gentleman named David Bombal who actually does good networking training. That's the only decent training that I've seen, but I did see that. And that was actually relatively good.
Yeah, I mean, David Bombal, he has good stuff.
He does.
Interestingly, with him, just so everybody gets a little bit on, he's more on the engineering side, right? Also, yeah, I believe he's a CCIE. Yeah, he even made the comment one time that it wasn't financially viable for him, or there wasn't enough interest to do tech content. Okay, so that gives you an idea of somebody as experienced as him is even refraining from. But he still has a couple of good courses that you can get through Udemy from him as well. Now, it's not going to be, I don't want to use the term world class because he is really good at what he does. But again, it's going to be within certain confines and restrictions. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, fantastic content. Yeah, let's move on to the next question, please. From Mr. J. Hi, guys. Great work, by the way. Thank you very much for that. How does the one-on-one consultation work? Is it just a one-off call? How long are we in contact with you?
So, Jay, a one-on-one consultation is a 1-hour call that we do. And here's where I recommend them, and here's where I don't. I recommend them for someone that's going to interview on a $500,000 a year job. Because when you're interviewing for a $500,000 job, and I've gotten plenty of people $500,000 jobs, but when you're interviewing on a job that pays between $300,000 and $800,000, everything has to be just perfect. And if you can talk to somebody that can make you 5% crisper and, can help you stand out, it's worth it. What if I told you in all the good jobs, director level or above, or principal architect level above, there's $200,000 difference between the top and the bottom paid person in that position. So for one of these things, if I can prep you for what the hiring manager is really looking to hear for those positions, and I can make you shine and get you an additional $50,000, then it's worth that one-off, one-on-one conversation for me. I try not to do that many of them, and I try to qualify them and make sure it's going to provide value for the client. If I can answer somebody's question free on YouTube, I do it. If I can answer somebody's question free on our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar or Enterprise Architect Job webinar, we typically do one each week, we answer it free. But I've had some people that are interviewing for $500,000 jobs and they just need a little help. And let's be fair. What if you had a job opportunity and you're unemployed and but you want to get it? Is it worth, spending a little money to potentially shorten your job search by 6 months when you're unemployed? Especially if you're going to earn $20 or $1,000 a month, then it's worth it. But I try to use them sparingly. And I really try to use it when someone wants to go from manager to VP or from engineer to principal architect, because there's some opportunity if I can polish them up overnight because they've maybe done some solution engineering and some sales engineering. And it's now having people not think of them engineer as now as an architect than I do them. But I try not to do a ton of them because there's a huge weight, even at what we charge for them. And I really don't ever want to sell anything that I don't think is in people's best interest. So I try not to do them for normal stuff. But there's a time there. And I can tell you, when I had big interviews for jobs, I spoke to an executive coach and an interview consultant that helped me on it because it was worth me paying a couple $1,000s to raise my salary by $100,000 or more per year. It was worth it. And it was an investment in me for my future. But you don't hear me talking about it all the time. You don't hear me saying, do private one-on-one sessions with me, because I try to take as many as I can for free. And I'm pretty open and I'm honest, very live on these channels. Sometimes there was a song when I was younger, it was called Cruel to Be Kind. And, sometimes I give people all the information. I recommend you not do this, even though it's the easiest thing to do for this reason. I recommend this. I really care about our outcome. So that's what we're talking about. It's a one-on-one consultation. And typically when we do them, I'll give the person some pre-work to do so they can maximize that 1 hour. So they probably put 30 hours into the one-on-one call by the time they got it to make sure it makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And feel free to send a message to me if it makes sense and we can do what we need to make it make sense for you. But I'm really out there trying, and that's why I'm here at least once a week for free. I won't be for the next 2 weeks. I'll be in Palm Beach, getting a little sun and time with my wife.
All right, let's go on to the next question, please. From, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Dhruv. Its question is, I've been reading multiple articles about reverse migration from cloud to on-premises due to cost concerns. Would this trend increase going forward? And the second part is, and if yes, would Enterprise Architect, or the course that we have for that, would that help us?
Well, first, the Enterprise Architect course is probably the course that everyone should take, even if they want to be cloud architects, and I'll tell you why. The Enterprise Architect program includes our Cloud Architect program, the entire program. And why do I do that? Because the cloud is kind of everything in today's world. And I'll get to the cloud repatriation thing in a minute. It also has extra courses in digital transformation. It also has extra classes in business process reengineering. And it also has a lot of extra tech content that the enterprise architect would know. So with regards to that, it'll get you cloud architect jobs and enterprise architect jobs, and it will prepare you for much higher paying jobs. So anybody I would recommend our Enterprise Architect program for that's interested in a cloud architect or an enterprise architect. Now let's talk about the cloud repatriation, what's going on. Now I'm going to tell you cloud spending is going up. I'm also going to tell you data center spending is going up. And here's the reason why. When we started our company, I looked at the cost of doing it. And I knew what my needs were. I needed 10 servers with 24 cores and each server having 128 gigs of RAM, the physical servers themselves. I knew what I needed. Now, I went to AWS and they had these beautiful i3 instances that if I fully maxed it out, all the cores and all the DRAMs, I could rent them for $1,100 per month. Now, that would include a 1 terabyte hard drive. Slow hard drive compared to what I have, but a 1 terabyte hard drive. Now, I was able to buy these servers from Amazon for $1,000 each. So I bought the 10 servers from Amazon. I already had a router and a switcher. So it cost me $10,000 to buy the servers versus $11,000 a month in the AWS cloud. $10,000 one time, 3 years in the AWS cloud, $400,000. 10,000 versus 400,000. Now, I got to tell you, I had 8 million cloud consultants trying to tell me how much money they could send me on the AWS cloud. And I said, okay, sure. Now, Darav, what if I tell you that I can buy those same servers refurbished from AWS, from Amazon website now for $400, and AWS is still charging $1,100 a month? How's that saving you any money? It's not. So what initially happened before employers actually cared is they hired people that would pass an AWS exam, and they were told all the reasons why cloud computing was cheaper. It's not. Cloud computing is more agile, which provides incredible business value, the agility. It provides speed and time to market. So there's a lot of good reasons to go to the cloud. But if a company went to the cloud and said, we're going to save you money, and then you saw your costs go up 250% or more, and you got nothing for it, you're going to leave that cloud, and you're going to leave it fast. So we had that cloud repatriation movement until AI came in. And now GPUs are hard to find because Elon Musk bought like 100,000 of them. And I'm literally not joking. He bought 100,000 H100s from NVIDIA for his new AI startup. Amazon has the fastest, biggest AI system in the world. Their system, which has 35,000 GPUs. Elon Musk has 3 times just for one of his businesses. So think about that. So all the AI went to the cloud. Now, when you go on the cloud, you can create your AI systems 2 ways. You can hire a bunch of smart people and create it yourself. If you don't have access to all those smart people, in AWS has a pre-made managed service for you, and they've got some systems that you can use whatever LLM you want in a simple drag and drop click environment. Lots of people now went back to the cloud providers for doing it. So the key is the enterprise architecture course would obviously help you. The cloud repatriation movement is not a problem for cloud architects. And why is that? So Darav, I have everyone and have always had every one of my cloud architects build a private cloud, an OpenStack cloud. And every architecture student I have knows how to design a private cloud, a public cloud, a hybrid cloud, and a hybrid multi-cloud, because that's real architecture. So if you learn cloud architecture for real, and the customer says, oh, now we want a Nutanix cloud, you're like, okay, I'll move all this stuff to your data center, I'll design your cloud. They still need a cloud architect. If all you know is AWS and the names of AWS services, and you have that solution architect type knowledge, and you're not employable. And that's why I never train solutions architects. Now, do I have people like Balwinder Kerr who went from a stay-at-home mom to a solution architect over at Azure? Sure, I do. They have O, and I want to mention O because get a $409,000 solution architect job at Google. Yeah, I did. Did Ivan Tamba, for example, who was a college student, or Jordan Katil, who was another college student, get hired at AWS as a solution architect? Sure, because a cloud architect can take a solution architect job any day of the week. An enterprise architect can take a solution architect job any day of the week. But a solution architect won't be able to take these bigger roles unless they learn things. And that's why we've never taught single cloud. That's why if you look at everything we posted out there for 3 years, it was always multi-cloud. And it's our contention that if you don't understand the data center, you will never understand the cloud. And that way, if you understand the data center and you're dealing with a physical load balancer, whether it's an application load balancer, physical network load balancer, reverse proxy in the data center, guess what you have in the cloud? A virtual version of the same thing. You got a router in your data center, you got a virtual router in the cloud. It's the same thing. You got the same BGP in your data center as you have your cloud. You have the same block storage, object storage, file storage in your data center. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So keep that in the back of your mind.
All right. Fantastic. Next question is from Julius. They're asking, I am in the UK. Is this time favorable?
So, Julius, the UK actually is some of the most favorable times out there, and I'll explain to you why. So what did I do and what did our team do? We looked at who our primary clientele is. And we've got clientele in every country in the world. But our primary clientele is North America, meaning Canada, the US, South America, England, Europe, and Africa. And so, England time for the most part is the same time as, say, Nigeria. What, as you would say in Cameroon, the West African time in Cameroon is kind of the same time as it would be in Central European time. Then we get into that time where we get into, say, Bulgaria or Greek time. The times are still good. So our class on Tuesday in the Live Cloud Architect program is at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So that's typically plus 5 hours in the UK, so 3 p.m. Now, our Thursday class, the one we're going to teach in a little bit, is today's Wednesday, never mind, is 4 to 6 p.m. So that's typically 9 to 11 p.m. in England. And the Friday class is 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time, which works out to typically 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the UK. And by doing it that way, we're able to hit all of North America, all of South America, pretty much all of Europe, all of Africa. And we do have some people in the Middle East where it gets a little harder. We have lots of students in India where they literally stay up at night or later at night to take some of our classes. We've got lots of students in Australia that are doing so the same way. But, the key for us is we tried to pick the majority of times that we did. And then we created a non-live version also for people that can't take the live classes. But we tried. So I think you'd be fine in England. I think Friday's pub time, when you instead of going to the pub, you'd take our class. I think the Thursday evening class will work out perfectly for you. And the reality is on Monday at 3 p.m., even if you can only attend 1 hour of the session because you're at work, it would still be worth it. And we record all classes in case you make them, and not everybody can attend all classes. In fact, 80% of our people work full time, and many people only get to one class per week. But because we let you stay in the program until you're hired, you don't lose out on anything. So we did the best we could, time-wise, to try and accommodate as big of a percentage of the world as we possibly could.
And while we want you guys to be there live, right? Because I saw also a statement come in from Rishab. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. But if the live classes don't work for you, remember you always have the on-demand classes. Now, it's not what we recommend if you want to get the most out of it, because you get to interact with us, you get to ask your questions. But let's be honest, if that doesn't work for you and that additional investment is not something you're going to take advantage of, then go for the on-demand training. It's still going to make you 99.9% better than anyone out there because of what is included in the content. And one of the benefits you still have is the recordings do come out. And don't forget, you can still interact with us, if I'm correct, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, on Slack. So if you do have some follow-up questions, you can still have them. Just allow us a little bit of time to actually get to them, because we do have a little bit of a backlog, always trying to get to people as well, answering their questions. But in general, you still have that option if live just doesn't work because of timing. If you can make it happen somehow, do it. We have students in our class. What was it last time? It was, I think, 4 a.m. for them. They joined us because it was important to them to do that. But let's be fair.
A lot of students.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of students do it, but I'm going to be fair. If you have children, if you have a day job, these things might not allow you to be there at 4 o'clock in the morning. We understand. Been there, done that, right? So take advantage of what is available to you. And then in the future, when your situation changes, guess what? Send us a message and we'll get you upgraded to the live classes if the recordings themselves are not enough anymore for you to be able to advance where you want to go. Okay, next question, Tyrone, please. And it's from Madhu. If one is applying for a cloud architect job, first thing is the resume goes into the ATS system where they see no experience and they reject you. What are the recommendations for IT and non-IT people? Is there more to it? I think that's about it, right?
So, Madhu, the first thing is, why are you applying for jobs? So if you apply for a job, you're going to get auto-rejected. If you find a recruiter, the recruiter is going to send you, let's say Mark is the hiring manager. And here's how we teach. We teach people how to build recruiter networks, and we teach our people how to create the right content. So now imagine this. Now I'm the recruiter. I typically recommend IT Excel. Christina Marino is one of the recruiters I know. She's in New York. She's a rock star. But now Mark is the hiring manager. Hi, Mark. How are you today? It's Mike Gibbs.
Nice to meet you, Mike Gibbs. Thank you very much for the opportunity to allow me to sit down with you and have a discussion about your needs.
You know, Mark, I wanted to tell you about someone. I noticed that you had reached out to us and asked to help you find a cloud architect.
Correct.
I have this person. Her name is Chow Pham. You know, I've known Chow. I've spoken to Chow. She's not your typical person. She's very limited in experience. She's done a 1,000-hour architectural training program. But when I speak to her, she's better than 99% of the people that I've actually spoken to. She understands digital transformation. She understands the network, the data center, the cloud. She's familiar with AWS, Azure, and Google. I've seen her present. I've seen her leadership skills. How would you feel about interviewing her?
I feel like I already know a little bit. I tell you what, tell her instead of going through the system, doing the whole shebang with the application, get me her resume if you don't have it already. I'm going to take a look. I will personally call her and set up a time that I can discuss her future with us.
Sounds great, Mark. And after you're done speaking with her, let her know. You know, I really deeply value the relationship we've had over the last 15 years. We placed a lot of people. And when I saw Chow, I just thought I should teach you about it. Now, but here's what's going to happen. Go ahead, finish. You can finish that, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, of course, Mike, we've had a wonderful relationship over the years. Every person that you've brought to us, we have valued deeply. We've had much success with them, and I'm pretty sure Chow is not going to be any different. We look forward to meeting her.
So now Chow comes, and I'm going to be the hiring manager for a minute. I interviewed Chow, and I like her. Now Mark is HR. Hi, Mark. It's Mike Gibbs. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. What can I do for you?
You know, Mark, I just interviewed this rock star for this cloud architect position we've been unable to fill. She has every skill I want, and she's super smart. But her leadership skills are a little better than anybody else we've actually interviewed. So I want to pay her 1.3 times what I'm paying the average architect, because the leadership skills, soft skills, executive presence, I know she's going to be worth it. Can you put a package together with a comp ratio of 1.3? I'm actually having Chow actually fill out the what do you call it, the application. She's already my person. I'm going to hire her. She's my go-to. So the application is going to be there for historical purposes. That'll kick off. You need to do any drug testing or anything of her. But I need her to start on this day. I need you to send me the package. Now,
okay. I'll take care of it. Let her know that she might get some awkward messages. Just tell her to ignore those messages unless they come directly from you or I. But aside from that, consider it done.
Great. Now, Chow is working for them. Now, I'm going to tell you, Chow's going to be so good that she's going to get promoted to senior architect. Now, of course, she's going to get auto-rejected from HR because she doesn't have the experience, but it doesn't matter. I've been auto-rejected from 3 of the 5 jobs that I've already taken and been promoted in. And it's very common. So the key is you have to keep HR away. You have to keep those internal recruiters away. So you create the right content to get people to come to you. 90% of the people on LinkedIn create content that shows me not to hire them. By comparison, there's plenty of people that show incredible content on what to actually do. So that's the thing. The thing is, you don't go and apply unless you've been invited to apply. You leverage your recruiter network. You build connections. You do all of this. And by doing so, poof, you get hired. So don't let yourself get auto-rejected. I learned this a long, long, long time ago. And that's how I got my first job.
And I just want to point something out. I know we went overtime already. I'll take the blame for this time, but you guys had fantastic questions. And again, like I always say, it's our way of being able to give back. I just wanted to briefly address Jay's statement there. And this is for Jay and everybody else. If you are considering to sign up for any of the programs that are live, the actual promo code is going to be valid for a few days, but I will put it this way. Don't wait too long. I know from my experience, if there's something already that I'm convinced of that I feel could give me value, I've missed out because I had analysis paralysis, if you've ever heard that term. I just went over too many times. But if you need to take 24, 48 hours, please do so. If you need to discuss it with your spouse, sell them on the investment that you're about to make in yourself, for your family, into your career. That is totally fine. But don't wait 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks or months. Take advantage of what it is. And if you have any questions, of course, you're welcome to join us tomorrow as well for the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect program. And if there's any misconceptions, we'll be more than happy to be able to clear them up for you. Do we have any additional questions before I have to let Mike go? Because I've been keeping him too long here. That's it. All right, Mike. I think that gives you a little bit of a break before we got class tonight. Any closing statements you have?
Yes, bear with me a second. My little princess cat, she just came in to say hello. And join us tomorrow on the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. We will cover every aspect of the role and give you a full skill list. And we'll also leave about an hour and 15 minutes open for you to ask any question you want. It can be questions about your career, questions about our program. I don't care what they are. I just want to help you. I like answering questions. I really like guiding people. And guess what? It'll be on Zoom. It'll be on Zoom. So kind of keep that in the back of your chest. I will be there. And because I will be there, you'll be able to ask me any questions directly. Otherwise I don't get involved in anything really related to sales. I'm all about making sure our clients are good. Our clients are going to their questions. So there's that. But it's live on Zoom. So ask your questions.
Yeah. And for Drew, since you brought up this question, is take advantage of the webinar that we're going to have tomorrow, because it's going to allow you a lot more information in regards to what it will take to get to an architect type of role. Yeah. And of course, you're welcome then to connect with me, with Mike, ask your questions, and let us help you in that fashion. So that way you don't have to get onto consultation, wait weeks on weeks. Do it tomorrow with us, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions and reassure you in what you need reassuring.
The last thing I want to do is have somebody sign up for a paid consult when I can ask their questions completely free on a webinar. It's not a goal of mine to take people's money. We're there. We're free. Please ask the questions. So, Darab, come to the thing tomorrow, and we'll answer any questions you want. And we can figure out anything. You want to see if you're ready for a job? You want a mini interview? We'll do it. Want to ask a career question? We'll do it. I just want to get you to your goal, and I want to do it in the fastest and most cost-effective manner. And fastest matters for me. And here's the reason why. The average cloud architect earns $20,000 a month. So if I can give you a free answer in a webinar, and you can get hired 3 months sooner than trying to book a paid session with me, that's $60,000 worth of income to you. I'm all about building a business case for everything I do. My wife thinks it's hilarious. I'm going to go invest in this, and I've got an ROI model and a business case. She says, Mike, you can just afford it. I'm like, yeah, that's not the issue. The issue is, do we need it? How's it going to function us? And is it a good investment? And she thinks it's absolutely hilarious until she tries to tell me why she needs 1,500 pairs of shoes versus 1,000 pairs of shoes. And then she's got a reason. It's not exactly a business case, because my wife is like the ultimate cardiologist. She's a super genius. It's which shoes are going to go with which dress for which date that we're going to go on and how much fun we're going to have together. But that's a business case in and of itself. But you want someone that can practice cardiology and cure ill? My wife is the best of the best. I mean, total rock star. 170 IQ, learned Spanish in 10 days because her translators couldn't understand her thoughts. So that's kind of fun. So I hope to see all of you tomorrow at the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. I also hope that you register for the free Azure training. It'll be fun. It'll be 2 weeks. We'll go far more than what you would deal with in a certification course. We'll actually explain what the technology actually is. And we'll have some fun with it. So join us completely for that. And do check out lots of the free things we've got listed in here. Free books on enterprise architecture, cloud architecture, AI architecture, prepping for an interview. Our team tries to give you as much as we can. Take care, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you in class very soon. And I did notice that a few people signed up for our training. So please read the Welcome to Go Cloud Careers email. I hate it when somebody signs up and they don't read the email and they don't know how to use our system, because I want everybody to have great results. So if you're one of those people that signed up, please go out there and read that Welcome to Go Cloud Careers email.
It takes me to, well, if you're already signed up for it, you should also get an email that lets you know that you got signed up for it. So
yeah, I think what happened is our marketing department, you've got lots of places where people can send you to where it's going. And, you know, they could send you to a YouTube channel. They could send you a thank you page. My team probably, the marketing team probably has it sending you to our course training page where you can learn more about our programs and what we do. So that could be the way we did it. But if you filled it in, you'll be getting an email.
Yeah. And by the way, this is also something we recommend for those that are already signed up for tomorrow's webinar, or if you're interested in the program. I do this myself too. I like to prepare. And if you're going to be an architect, get used to preparing, to reading, weighing the pros and the cons, look through what is entailed of the program, what is included, and synthesize questions that are going to help you gain clarity so that you can make an informed decision, so that you can actually justify both emotionally as well as logically why you should be investing in your career instead of not just doing it haphazardly. But in either case, as Mike already said, we're very happy that we've been able to spend some time with you. For those that have signed up for the webinar, we look forward to discussing further matters with you tomorrow. And for those that have signed up for the training, welcome to the team. And we'll see you in the next training.
Take care, everyone.